Case number 472 on the calendar, the matter of Weaver versus Wisner. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, according to your complaint, you hired the defendant to perform your wedding ceremony, and you paid her $150?
Yes.
And Ms. Wisner didn't come to the ceremony. She came about an hour late after you called her. She gave you your money back, $150, and did what she had to do because somebody else had performed the ceremony, so she signed the marriage certificate. She apologized, she gave you back your money, and now you want tons of money for your aggravation.
I don't want tons.
Well, you paid her $150, and you're suing her for $1,000.
Yep.
First of all, she didn't apologize.
Well, she apologized by giving you back your money.
That doesn't make up for keeping a room full of people waiting. I mean, when it's your wedding day, that's the last thing you think of is that your preacher's not going to show up.
Terrible.
Yep. And then she sits in an 8-by-8 room waiting for her to come in. It just...
Mr. Weaver, I'm going to let you do the entire thing. You contacted her. The wedding was supposed to take place when and what time?
December 30th at 6:30 p.m.
And she didn't show up. She wasn't there at 6:30, so you called her.
Right.
And what time did you call her?
I got right here on my cell phone bill. It was 6:34. I called.
And did you get her on the phone?
No, left a message.
Okay, and then what happened?
I tried her cell phone at 6:44.
And did you get her?
No, left a
ahead.
message. Then I tried again at 6:57.
Okay.
Got a hold of her.
Good. And what did you say to her, and what did she say to you?
I said, Miss Wisner, Stu Weaver, aren't you supposed to be somewhere about now? And she goes, oh my God, was that tonight? And I go, yes, I think it was. And she goes, well, I've had travel problems. And I said, I don't hear about your travel problems. I have people here from Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Florida. She goes, well, we got laid over in Atlanta. And I said, so this is what you call taking $150 of money and run. And she goes, oh my, don't say that. And I says, we have someone we think that'll perform the ceremony.
And who was that?
That was a co-worker of Lisa's.
Well, how could she perform the ceremony?
She is an ordained minister for her church.
Oh, good.
But she is not recognized by the state of Ohio.
Okay, but she's an ordained minister for the church, and
Yes,
she's
ma'am.
performed...
And she did not get there until about 7 o'clock herself.
But she was a guest.
Yes, she was a guest.
We have,
she had never performed a wedding before.
Okay, she was a guest. She got there at 7. You asked her to perform the wedding.
Yes.
What time was the ceremony performed?
Let's say about 7:15.
It was,
Okay. And how many people did you have at the wedding?
Between 80 and 85.
Now, you told Miss Wisner to come because she had to sign the certificate.
I asked if she could come and sign the marriage certificate.
And what did
Correct.
she say?
She says, well, I don't think I can make it tonight. Can we arrange it tomorrow? And I says, well, yeah, if you can fly to Hawaii tomorrow, because we leave at 5:30 in the morning for Hawaii.
Okay, and what did she say?
He hauled around a little bit. Of course, she was ill like I am today. So, and she goes, well, I will be there when I can get there. And I
And what
said,
time
well,
did she arrive?
I think it was around 9:30.
And what did she do when she arrived at 9:30?
Well, she come in the door and we filled out the form and she signed a marriage certificate and then she handed over a check.
And what did she say when she handed over the check?
She says it's the first time in 12 years. This has never happened in 12 years.
Okay, and you took the check?
Yes.
Good. What happened to your travel plans?
We had planned a trip out here to be with family at Christmas time, and it truly was the trip to hell and back. We ended up our first night out spending the night on the airport floor in Cincinnati, and finally made it to California. Everything absolutely went wrong through the whole trip. We got on the plane on December 29th. We were to have been home that night. We ended up being stuck in Atlanta that night. We didn't get back until December 30th in the afternoon. In the meantime, I got very ill, and the stress of the trip and everything, I just went right to bed, thinking that I know I have a ceremony the day after we get home, and I was in such a muddle that it didn't occur to me that that was the day. I was thinking it was the next day.
Okay. You got there at 9:30?
No.
What time did you get there?
I didn't get there any later than 7:30 because I was home by 8 o'clock and back in bed.
And how far do you live from where the wedding was?
About 15 minutes.
Okay. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, you got married that day, correct?
Yes.
And you were married by 7:15.
Yes.
45 minutes after the invitations said that the wedding was going to take place, because the invitations called for 6:30.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
That is right.
Okay. Everybody knows when invitations read 6:30, wedding usually starts about a half hour later.
No,
her
no.
contract-
6:30 is when
No,
the wedding.
that's not what I'm saying to you, sir.
Well, Miss Wisner...
I'm speaking. All I want you to tell me is what you're suing for. I want to hear what you're suing for.
Okay, we're suing for. Here we go. We had to pay the DJ, which I have evidence of, an extra $150.
Good.
And I have my future wife in an 8x8 bathroom for 45 minutes.
Not knowing if we're going to have a wedding or
So,
not. We
yeah,
have a
you're
room
right.
full of people. She was supposed to be there at 6 p.m. to do a rehearsal. She said if you don't have a formal rehearsal the night before, that she requires that you be there 30 minutes prior to the start of the ceremony to go do a walkthrough. Well, we had none of that. And she's talking about a stressful trip. We had a very, very stressful wedding.
I understand that. I understand. How do you put
But
a
she didn't
gun-
even say she was sorry that
I
night.
did.
Not
I
to me.
apologize profusely. You wouldn't
We have
even.
witnesses.
You
Don't-
wouldn't
do me a
even
favor,
look at
don't.
me for me to apologize.
If
to
you're going
you.
to, don't speak to each other.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Now, Mrs. Weaver, I can understand your stress, but I don't understand why you choose to prolong that stress by instituting a lawsuit for $1,000 for stress when you got married, and whether it was from 7:15 or 7:45 until the wedding was over, I assumed that you danced together because you had a DJ. I assumed that you had dinner. I assumed that you conversed with friends. I assumed that you told this story innumerable times that the minister didn't show up for your wedding. You know, that will make a good story for you to tell 20 years from now. What I don't understand is why you choose to prolong whatever stress you had by bringing on a lawsuit. I could understand it if she didn't give you your money back. But she came and without even you asking, she handed you back your check, which indicates to me that she felt terrible about what had happened.
We still feel that we should have had a phone call.
She didn't even
She had
call.
all 3 numbers to call and say, hey, I'm
She
not
just said to you, sir, she got into bed and she really thought in her own mind that the wedding was scheduled for the day after she got back. It was a big mistake. And according to you, you said to me, when you got her on the phone, she said to you, oh, is that today? Which pretty much is what she says, that she thought it was the next day. How could she have called you? What was she supposed to do, call you and tell you, I think I have a wedding tomorrow? She made a mistake. Mistakes don't always
yeah,
comport
but
to
in
a
that
lawsuit.
profession, that's not a mistake. In that profession, that is not a mistake.
Now, what do you do for a living?
I drive a truck.
Ever make a mistake?
Yes.
Ever not get to where you're supposed to get on time?
Yes.
Did your boss dock you
Yes.
because you made a mistake? How would you feel if he turned around and sued you for his aggravation for an additional $1,000? Just a minute. I'm asking you a question. Would you think that your boss was out of order if he turned around and said, you know, I had a lot of people on my tail because you didn't get there on time, so in addition to docking you, I'm going to sue you for $1,000 or $2,000 for my aggravation? Would you think he was stupid?
He could do that, I guess.
I said, would you think he was stupid?
No.
Sure you would. And I think
No.
similarly. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I told you not to come on this show.
Really, the main thing that I wanted, it was the principle of the thing. An apology would have been nice that night.
I did apologize profusely, but Mrs. Weaver would not make eye contact with me and would not speak to me.
It was terrible. I mean, I'm in this little room and there's no preacher there.
Panic, yeah. Panic's the word.
I think people create their own disasters and their own problems, and they need to take life as it comes.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Jaramillo versus Adamo. Step forward, please.
Administrative assistant Catherine Jaramillo is suing the mother of her daughter's ex-boyfriend, medical transcriber Barbara Adamo, for a loan to catch up on her bills.
Ms. Jaramillo, according to what I've read in your complaint, your daughter and the defendant's son used to date.
Yes.
And that's how you knew her.
Yes.
How long did they date?
About 3 years.
And Miss Adamo at some point had some financial difficulties. You claim a series of loans to her, loans amounting to $2,950.
Yes.
The kids are no longer an item. They're no longer together. Miss Adamo says that while maybe she acknowledges one loan to help her pay her rent, she'd never received any other money from you. And in addition, she says that there was some sort of a set-off for that rent money, which she's going to tell me about. When and why did you make the first loan?
My daughter came to me and said, you know, can you help her out a little bit? They don't have any food in their house. Both of her sons were living there at the time. She had 4 kids there at the time. And they didn't have any groceries, and she didn't have any money. So I said, sure. So I gave my daughter $100 to take over there so that she could go grocery shopping.
Okay. That's not a loan.
Right.
That's
right.
a gift.
Right, I understand that.
Okay. Did she call you and thank you?
Yes, she did.
Tell me about that conversation.
She just said that she was always out of money, that she was having to go to check cashing places and get payday advances, that no one had ever really sat down and taught her how to pay her bills or how to budget her money. And I told her that I could help her do that because I, too, am a single mom with 3 kids. So we sat down and we wrote down everything she owed, all of her regular monthly bills, a few outstanding debts that she had, how much she made, how much she was capable of making, because if she works more, she can make more. And
What kind of work were you doing, Miss Adamo?
I do medical transcription.
You are an independent contractor?
No, I work at a hospital, but I have incentive. Anything over 1,000 lines a day, we get an additional 7.5 cents per line.
So you sat down with her. Do you remember when
Yes.
that was?
it was in November.
It was in December of 2003.
Okay. Go ahead.
In December of 2003, I asked her if she would help me with my budgeting. So she said, yes, I will help you because she's really good with money. And so I went to her house and we sat down and we put all the bills on the table and we went through the whole thing. And she said to me, tomorrow I'm going to go and get a money order for $1,350 and you're going to take it and pay your rent with it. And I said, wait, Kathy, I don't know when I can pay back $1,350.
Well, your rent was due. How were you going to pay your rent?
I didn't know at that point.
Well, you had to,
I was,
just Miss Adamo, you had to pay your rent.
right. So she gave me the money order for $1,350 a day later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what arrangements did you make to pay her back?
We had no arrangements at that point. She said we'd talk about it after the holidays. That's what she said to me.
Just a second. You mean she said we would talk about how you were going to pay her back
Yes,
after the holidays?
After the holidays.
So it was a loan.
Yes. Oh, it was a loan. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, I
I
wasn't clear on that.
No, it was a loan.
Fine.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Well, you must have a bank statement if you say you withdrew money.
I didn't ever think that I would need them.
Well, you need them when you come to court.
Right.
That's a no-brainer.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Catherine Jaramillo says former friend Barbara Adamo owes for a loan to pay bills.
Now, did the plaintiff's daughter give you $100 for groceries?
Yes, she did.
When?
Probably in November. That was before the $1,350.
Now, when was the second amount of money that you gave her?
The same day as the money order, I had my daughter go down to the bank and get the cash out.
For what?
Because when we sat down and we wrote down all of her bills, everything that she owed, I told her that I could loan her the money to pay all of this off so that she could start fresh. And she said that every year she got a really big tax check and that it would be February, March, and that she would be able to pay me back all of this. I completely wiped out all of her debt. She's never disputed that she's owed me this money until today.
Just a minute. How much did you give her in addition to the $1,350?
I gave her $600.
Is that right, Miss Adamo?
That's not right.
How much did she give you?
The only cash she ever gave me was the $100 in November, and then I received a money order for $1,350. I never, ever received any more cash after that point, ever.
Okay. Let us assume for the moment, just other than the $1,350 and what you claim is a $600 cash loan, is there any other money that you loaned her?
Yes, I gave her $600 right before Christmas because they didn't have a tree. She wasn't going to be able to get the kids anything.
Do you have any proof of that?
No, I do not.
Well, you must have a bank statement if you say you withdrew money.
We no longer have those. I didn't ever think that I would need them.
Well, you need them when you come to court.
Right.
And you knew
But
you were
she's-
coming. Shh, listen to me. And you knew you were coming to court.
Right.
So it's very easy to call the bank and say, get me a duplicate statement. Right?
Right.
That's a no-brainer. Okay. $1,350. Let's go.
Okay. And then my son graduated from boot camp, and I took Andy and her daughter, which she was supposed to reimburse me for that trip, which I have plane tickets and stuff, and that was supposed to come off the $1,350 that I owed her. And all of this was verbal. We never wrote anything down because we were friends at the time. I was very grateful for what she had done for me.
So you should have paid her back.
Yes.
And you still should pay her back.
Well, I did.
You explain to me how you paid her back.
Okay.
And give me the whole story. You were going to visit your son.
Yes.
And at that time, your son and her daughter were an item.
Correct.
And your son wanted you to bring his girlfriend.
Actually,
Look, your son wanted you to bring his girlfriend.
yes, he wanted to see her.
Right. And she said, Let me just speculate. She said she's not going. I don't have the money for her to go.
No, that's not what she said. As a matter of fact, I asked the daughter not to go because at that point I thought I was only going to have 5 hours to spend with my son because right after graduation he was being sent to Florida.
According to your answer, madam, you said, I spoke to Kathy and she said she wasn't willing to pay for the expenses for Andy and her friend. That's what you swore to in your answer.
Right, so we were supposed to take it out of the $1350. She wasn't supposed to give me the money. That's what we did. That's what we agreed upon.
Go ahead.
That is simply not true. My daughter was going to go see her boyfriend graduate. I paid for the trip. That was her birthday present for me. She bought the tickets online. I went over there and took her the cash for the tickets.
Well,
I paid
let me
for
ask
her
you-
trip, plus I gave her money to spend
Why
while
would
she
you,
was there.
let me ask you this question. Why would you give her money if she owed you all this money?
Because she wouldn't have the money to buy the tickets, and I wanted my daughter to go. She wanted to go. She did not want my daughter to go.
I didn't want her to go because of the fact that we only had a couple hours. So I asked her, let me just spend those few hours with my son. I've only got 5 hours with him. She threw such a fit.
Who did?
And Andy did. Her daughter threw such a
Her
fit.
daughter did. And what
Right.
about your son?
My son understood that I only had the 5 hours at that point. At first, he did want her to go.
Listen to me. Your son wanted his girlfriend there.
Of course he did.
Your son wanted his girlfriend.
course
It's
he
very
did.
nice to see his mother.
Absolutely.
Mother, I want to see my girlfriend.
Right.
If my mother brings my girlfriend, I'd be
a
happy to
lucky
see my
wife,
mother.
right.
But put your hand down. But if I had to choose, you said my girlfriend, and you can write me a long letter. All right, you owe her $1,350. That's what I'm satisfied she gave you as far as a loan is concerned. As far as the rest of the cash that you gave her, I'm not comfortable with awarding her that cash because you had the opportunity to have proof here before me that you did, in fact, at least take the money out of the bank. You chose, that was a conscious choice, not to do that. And I don't believe that there was any sort of a set-off for these plane tickets. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,350. That's all.
Please excuse Ms. Curley. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mr. Abakali, you were a tenant in a house that was owned by the plaintiff's mother.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And when did you enter into this lease with the plaintiff's mother?
The lease was entered into on April 16th
Commencing when?
for May 15th.
And was it a year lease?
It was.
So it terminated on June 15th.
No, it actually would have terminated on May 15th, 2001.
Now, when did this incident occur?
On July 8th, 2001.
And according to your complaint, you went over to your mother's home with some other relatives
Yes, my mother and my sister.
in order to secure the property
Yes, ma'am.
that should have been vacated.
Yes.
And at that time, the defendant assaulted you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was the lease extended, Mr. Abakali?
It was, Your Honor.
Until when?
Well, we had paid up until June 30th, but there was a dispute about a deposit that had been paid on the property for cleaning.
Just a second. You had extended it to June 30th as a month-to-month tenant?
Correct.
Okay. And you paid your rent.
I did.
On the 1st of July, you had not paid rent.
That's correct.
So you had no right to be there.
Well, I had sent a notice to the landlord that I was going to hold over the tenancy because of the dispute over the deposit that was originally paid.
Just a minute. You should have been out of the premises on July 8th because you had not paid rent. Now, let's move back. Now, I want you to tell me what happened when you got to the property on July 8th.
Well, when we got to the property on July 8th, we knocked on the door and there was no one there. We went inside and we were just horrified at the condition of the home when we walked in the door. I do have pictures of the home if you'd like to see them. And as we walked in and looked around the house, we realized that we needed to secure the property before any more damage had been done. The first picture is a picture of the home before, and the pictures following are there after Mr. Backley stating in his letter here that on the date of July 1st, he should be out of there and the house would be in move-in ready condition. And that house was not in move-in ready.
So what happened next?
So after seeing what had happened, we decided to go to Walmart and get locks to change the locks and secure the gates so that he could not come in with the rest of his family and do any more damage. So we went to Walmart, we came back. When we came back, Mr. Backley was in the home. My sister and my mother entered the house. I was outside, and I heard a commotion. I heard her yell, "Don't push me." And then I went in the house, and I guess he had apparently pushed her. So then he came back out. We told him to leave, and he said he was going to call the police. I said, "I'll call the police. You just leave." He left the premises. I went across the street and had the neighbor call 911, stating that he had pushed my sister and I need an officer there. So I waited outside while my mother was inside changing the locks. He comes back about 10 or 15 minutes later and parks out front of the house. He gets out and decides he's going to come in. I told him not to come in. He would be trespassing on the property. He tries to push by me. I push him back. He pushes by me, runs to the front door, and kicks the front door in. Comes back out. His wife comes with his daughter and son, I guess, in another vehicle. And they pull up. She's screaming profanities at us, telling us that we can't keep her car in the yard and stuff. And I told her, we're not trying to keep her vehicle. You know, I said, I will open the gate. You're more than welcome to take it out. Anyway, as this commotion is going on outside, him, his wife, and his daughter and them are all jumping over the fence onto the property after he'd already been told by the dispatcher to wait outside because we had called 911 again.
Outside of the gate?
Outside of the gate. Anyway, his wife came over the fence. My sister and his wife got into an altercation. Then the daughter came in and got involved with that with my sister. He jumped over the fence and fell down. And at that point, he said I was kicking him, which I was nowhere near him. After that point, I ran over and I tried to break it up. I told them to stop. The neighbor was over there holding my sister, telling her to let go, and the wife to stop. They stopped. That got settled, and then they started moving the rest of their stuff out, which was fine because we weren't there to stop. We were just there to make sure that if an officer was present, that it would have been much better for them to have waited. Anyway, he came back out of the house. They had gone and gotten a few things. He came back out. He pushed by her, and as he walked by me, I'm standing in the driveway saying, "We just calm down here." He walks by me and just punches me right in the eye, and I just went back, and it was like, I didn't know if I had an eye there. All I could see was white. I do have pictures of the incident. I said to him, I said, "What the hell did you punch me for? I didn't do anything to you." And he just looked at me like this, and he kept walking. But these are the pictures of what had happened that night. Anyway, after that, they continued to get their stuff out. It took 5 911 calls to finally get an officer to get there.
Okay, that's the assault that you're complaining of.
Yes.
All right. I'll hear you, sir.
Well, essentially, as she stated at the beginning, it's true. I was inside the house. I heard somebody yell, "Hello," and the next thing that I knew, the plaintiff's sister and her mother walked into the bedroom where I was boxing stuff up and cleaning up, and they were yelling profanities at me. I was pushed by her sister, who then told me not to push her. I started moving out of the residence at that time because I knew there was a problem, and I was telling them, this is something that really needs to be handled in court. You need to file an unlawful detainer. You know, I've sent you letters about this. I have the letters that I sent over the whole course of the tenancy about the problems that we were having on the property.
What kind of problems were you having on the property, sir?
Well, the first day that we moved in, we discovered that there was all kinds of property from the plaintiff's mother that was left on the premises. The house had not been prepared for us to move in, and the very first day that we moved in, the plumbing in the house stopped up. We had to have a plumber come out, and we were advised that, you know, that was from rust in the lines, that it would take about 10 to 20 years for that amount of rust to accumulate to stop.
Why didn't you move out?
Well, I had paid her a $1,000 deposit in order to, you know, clean the property up.
Just a minute. You paid her a $1,000 deposit to clean the property up, or a $1,000 security?
No. On April 16th, she told me that she needed $1,000 in order to clean the property up. When we looked at it, there was all kinds of stuff in the backyard, there was stuff in the front yard, there was stuff in the area by the pool where the pump is. And she said that because, you know, she's older, she was having problems getting everything cleaned up. I understood that. She said that she needed the deposit then, and she would use that to clean the property up.
You mean the security deposit?
Yes.
So it was security deposit?
Yes.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Terry Zakari says her mother's tenant, Michael Abackerley, blindsided her with a punch to the eye. Michael says he intervened because Terry's sister attacked his wife.
Now, what I find interesting is this could have been resolved very easily without all of these letters, because what you wanted back, I assume, was your $1,000 security deposit.
Not in the beginning.
What did you want?
In the beginning, I just wanted the property to be cleaned up.
Well, sir, if you're not happy with property, if property is terrible property, you say, I'm moving out of this place, it's uninhabitable, and I'm leaving. You don't live there for more than the lease and then complain about it.
No, I realize that. I was trying to work with Mrs. Jenny, the plaintiff's mother, in order to clean the property up, and I spent a lot of time and money.
No, why would you want to do that if you're only going to be there for a year?
Because it was a place that we could live. We looked for a long time to find a house that would be adequate for us until we purchased another house. We were actually building a house at that point.
All right. So you wanted to keep the house nice and clean because you were going to be living there for a year.
Right.
So I still don't understand why you would not be out by the 30th of the month.
Because of the dispute over various things that had been done during the course of the tenancy.
Why didn't you vacate the property by June 30th and then institute a lawsuit and say, I did not have full use and enjoyment of the premises, instead of talking about holdover proceedings, staying on after your lease. I mean, you had been out of the property.
Yes.
Clearly. When did you move into your new house?
On July 2nd, 2001.
All right, so that's still 2 days over.
Right.
So,
We were actually in the process of moving on the date of July 8th. There were still a few items that were on the property. We had
well,
a car.
they shouldn't have been there.
Right.
You were out, and you didn't pay your rent. So you should have been out. This is pretty serious injury. Were you arrested as a result of this assault?
I was not.
How come?
Because I was also assaulted.
Not by her.
No, not by
No.
him.
Not by her.
Well, I was assaulted at the point where I believe that her eye became injured. I think I may have struck her in the eye at the point that I jumped over the fence and fell down. What happened was I had called dispatch at the time that I left the property, and they told me to wait out in front of the property until a law enforcement officer arrived. While I was waiting in front of the property, my wife, my daughter, and my daughter's boyfriend arrived at the property, and my wife immediately demanded that they remove the chain off the fence so she could get her car.
So why didn't you say to your wife, the police will be here any minute, just wait, so that there's no confrontation, just wait, and then you get your car?
I was sitting inside my car at that time. When my wife said that, I saw the plaintiff's sister come out of the residence and move towards the car. I thought, based on what had happened prior to that she was going to damage the car. So I jumped over the fence and I fell down. I had my cell phone in my hand because I was on the line to 911. At that point, the plaintiff started telling me that I was under arrest and just to stay on the ground. When I looked over towards my wife, she was now inside the yard and she was on the ground with the plaintiff's sister, and they were fighting. I saw a man standing over them.
You shouldn't have gone onto that property.
I wanted my car.
Then you wait until the police arrive.
We had waited. I'm sorry. We had waited. It had already been 2 hours, and I couldn't figure out why my husband hadn't come home. My daughter had just come up to visit us and had passed by the house and said that they were waiting for the cops to come.
So?
And then I asked her to drive me over there.
So?
And I asked them when I got there if I could get my car. And they said no.
Right,
Yes,
you're
I
supposed
did
to wait for the police to come. Because right now, if you had waited for the police to arrive, which I assume they ultimately did,
Yeah, ultimately.
none of this would have happened. If you had waited with your husband outside the fence, this wouldn't have happened. But you got hot. Sit down. This is not acceptable, sir. I'm just absolutely amazed that you weren't arrested. That's a pretty serious injury.
We got nothing but a runaround by the police department and everyone else because this man is supposed to be respected.
Your Honor, if I may, I was assaulted also. I was hit over the head with an object that
I didn't
split
hit
my
you.
head open. I don't believe that it was the plaintiff. However, it was somebody that was standing behind me, and I required 5 staples as a result of that. I don't have pictures of the injuries, unfortunately, but I do have the medical records that show that, in fact, I was also assaulted.
I believe that you were. You say in your answer that you were assaulted. The problem is you don't know who assaulted you,
Correct.
and that still doesn't explain this.
Your Honor, at the time that I went over the fence, I was the first one to go over
That's
the
not
fence.
when it happened, Your Honor.
My wife,
My
again,
sister
was
was
standing
present.
at the fence. I jumped over the fence. I fell to the ground. When I looked over, I saw that my wife was fighting.
Okay.
And there was a man standing over her and a woman on top of her. The plaintiff was pushing me down to the ground and telling me that I was under arrest to stay down. I pushed away at her so that I could get to my wife.
Yes.
Your Honor,
And
I-
just a minute. And
I believe that may be when that happened.
this wasn't a push.
I never struck her in the way
This isn't a push.
I did not punch her in the way that she's describing.
Oh, no, it just happened by itself?
No, just a second. This, sir, is not a push. This is, even when it's cleaned up, this is a slug right in the eye.
Your Honor, I would never slug a woman. I would never punch a
you
woman.
already
I would
have.
never
A
hit
liar.
a woman like that.
Just
You
a
did?
second.
It
Did
came
you
from
see the
your
pictures?
fist. He hasn't seen the pictures.
I
He
saw
hasn't
the
even
injury at the
acknowledged that
time.
He did this.
She stepped up to me and said that I had cut her eye, and I saw that. I didn't realize that I had done that.
He was probably high at the time, Your Honor. I'm
No,
sure.
I don't know if he was
Something
high at
wrong
the
with
time.
him.
He was angry. But this whole problem started because of his wife. There's no question that it all started because of her.
Your Honor, I have to say that's unfair to my wife. She was not the one that was screaming profanities at the time.
Yes.
Just a
She
minute.
was.
Screaming, screaming, screaming does not do this. Let me tell you, sir, if you, who was standing outside, because you were certainly abiding by what you had been told, wait outside for me. right? When you
Yes.
spoke to the police, you were doing that. If the police had arrived, you were outside, they were outside, what would have happened was you would have said to the police, I still have property inside the house. We may resolve everything else. I want to go get the rest of my stuff. Police officer would have instructed them to unlock the gate. You would have gotten your property. Your wife would have gotten her car, and you would have left. And then if you wish to pursue a matter civilly with regard to these people, because you felt that they had not fulfilled their part of their agreement, you could have pursued the matter civilly. That's what would have happened had your wife not insisted that she enter the property before the police arrived to get her car. That's why it's your wife's fault, because she was the precipitating factor. You should not have been there on July 8th. Your tenancy was up. You had not paid rent. There was not an order permitting you to be there. You had, in fact, moved out into your new house, albeit you didn't move out on the 30th of the month. You still stayed over 2 days because your house probably wasn't ready or you didn't have a closing date for those 2 days. For all intents and purposes, you were out of the house. The house, I've seen worse, but was not left in certainly pristine condition. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is, but for her conduct, this whole problem wouldn't have happened. And quite frankly, I am absolutely baffled why the police did not pursue this matter. Even though you may have been assaulted, they may have had on their hands a case of assault where they didn't know who the perpetrator was, but they certainly knew who the perpetrator was of this. And if you're a nice young man, and I assume that you are, I assume that you wouldn't have spent any time in jail, but I'm quite certain that the police should have pursued this matter. I am absolutely amazed that they did not. I was a prosecutor for many years.
Your Honor, again, if I may, the case was submitted to the Attorney General for review. They reviewed the case and they determined that, in fact, I was justified in what I did. There were a variety of other charges that were also lodged against the other parties in this case.
Why was it sent to the Attorney General's office?
Because
Your Honor, it was sent to the Attorney General's office because of his position as being a Deputy District Attorney of Barstow. We couldn't have it heard in that court because he's being under investigation for criminal charges.
So that's why it went to the Attorney General's
there
office.
was a conflict of interest in my office.
Okay. In any event, you were lucky. Still have a scar on your eye?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Would you step up here? I'd like to take a look at it.
It's on the left eye here.
Oh, it doesn't look so bad.
Not now, it doesn't. Makeup does wonders.
Don't we know that?
Yeah.
How's your vision?
It's a little blurry, and I've been having headaches and nightmares from it. So
Headaches, nightmares, okay. Headaches, we all have headaches. Nightmares,
I'm also
doesn't look so bad.
seeking counseling. I'm going to therapy. Would you like me to step back?
Please.
Thank you.
Part of the thing that you're suing for is for mental distress, and I see a psychiatric evaluation that was done on August the 9th. You've been in therapy before, is that right?
No, ma'am. I started in August.
You never was taking any medication before August?
Yes, I was. I was seeing a regular family doctor for
And what
anxiety.
kind of medication were you taking?
I believe it was called Celexa or something like that. It was to keep me to be mellow and not
Right,
have the,
because you have sort of histrionic personality.
Yeah,
according-
I'm very hyper.
You're hyper. And how long had you been taking that medication?
For about 3 weeks.
Prior to this?
Yes.
Before that?
Before that, I seemed to be just doing okay.
So it was a recent onset, the need for psychiatric medication. You haven't suffered with these problems your whole life.
No. Well, I don't think so. I mean, I
don't
could
think
have,
so?
but
Sometimes bad things happen to nice people, so I don't believe you're probably a bad person. I think that this whole situation got out of hand. It should not have gotten out of hand, especially somebody who's charged in a position of some responsibility and authority. You owe to the community a higher standard than civilians. I always felt that way when I was a prosecutor.
And I agree with you.
Okay, so this whole situation got out of hand. She was injured. She was injured by your hand. She had substantial medical bills. She will continue to have some medical bills. She's suing you for $5,000. That's the judgment of the court. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Number 479 on the calendar in the matter of Alan Torres versus Escamilla. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
You're Miss Allen?
I'm Miss Torres.
Miss Torres, Mr. Allen.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. It won't help you. The defendants are the apartment manager and his wife. You were tenants in their building.
Still are.
Still are. And according to what I've read, your 2 apartments share a common wall. Is that right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay. And there lies the trouble. According to you, the defendant's wife, one evening, took the key that was given to her husband for emergency entry into your apartment. You did have the key, sir, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And came into your apartment in the middle of the night,
3 o'clock a.m.
which was an unlawful entry. And she says that she thought that you were battering each other, which is why she came in. You say because of that and other things, you are being forced to move.
Correct, Your Honor.
And you want to be compensated for
Correct,
the
Your Honor.
unlawful entry and also for the costs of your moving. The defendant says that they were really afraid for your safety. Your safety.
We were sleeping, Your Honor.
Just a second.
Okay.
Your safety. By the way, switch places. Okay? Now that's better because I have, on my papers, I have Alan Torres. Good. Do you understand that, Bert?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Tell me about how long you've been living in this apartment complex.
Approximately 2.5 years, almost 3.
How long has the defendant been the manager of the complex?
Approximately maybe 2 years.
So they moved in after you were already there.
Right.
So far, is that correct?
Correct. No.
Now, from the time you moved in, have you been disturbed by the noise coming from their apartment?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Right. And these common walls are very thin in between the 2 apartments. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm just laying it all out. On what evening did Miss Escamilla come into your apartment?
January 8th, ma'am.
January 9th.
Your Honor. It was my birthday, January 8th.
It was the January 8th, but in the morning of January 9th?
7th.
January 9th. Now, what time did you enter their apartment?
3 o'clock in the morning.
Where was your husband?
He was asleep.
So why don't you tell me why you entered their apartment?
We were awakened.
No, you weren't awakened, the 2 of you.
No,
Only you were awakened. You said he was asleep.
I woke him up because I heard noises coming from their apartment. There was loud noises. They have a tendency of fighting, beating up on each other. And because of that and the loud noise, I woke up my husband. My husband called them on that evening. They did not pick up the phone. I went over there. I knocked on the door. They did not open the door. So I went back home. I told my husband, I'm going to go inside because of the fact of not hearing her anymore, but hearing the loud music. I got scared.
You were hearing loud music?
The music was very loud. I have testimony. I have a written testimony here also from a next-door neighbor.
You had very loud music, and you would try to call them, and they didn't answer.
Have my phone number. Sorry. Sorry.
Loud music that was annoying you, and you went into their apartment. You took the key.
Not only because of the loud music, but because of the fighting.
No. Listen to me. I don't want you to think that I'm stupid. Because you seem to be an intelligent woman. And I'm a little older than you are. Common life's experience suggests that if you think someone has just gotten battered and beaten to the point of unconsciousness because you no longer hurt her, you don't take the key from your husband and go into the apartment alone. What you do is you call 911. And you say, I believe that there was an assault next door, something happened next door, could you please come? Or your husband may go in. You go in because you were being disturbed by the loud music. And that's the only reason you went in.
I went in because of the fact of what I heard that evening and because of what I had heard prior to that.
And I'm telling you that that does not have the ring of truth to it, madam. The ring of truth would be if you were afraid, unless your husband is a wuss. Maybe he would go in to look to see if she was safe, if you were really concerned about her safety. What sounds more logical is, I can't believe we got to listen to that music anymore. I'm furious, and they don't pick up the phone, and I banged on the wall, and they don't turn it off, and I'm going to go in there myself, and I'm going to give them a what for. That's something you might do. See, your husband, if he was afraid, maybe he would get a bat or some weapon and go in to make sure she was okay. So I don't want you to think that I believe for 1 second that you went in there because you were afraid for her safety. Not for a second. And you had no right to go in there. No right. That's not worth $2,500. Let's understand each other.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Casey Allen and his fiancée, Jenny Torres, are suing their apartment manager, Ernest Escamilla, and his wife, Eloida, for an unlawful entry into their apartment. Eloida says she entered the apartment because she thought Jenny was in danger.
Now, let's get back to you, because I don't think you're blameless in this whole thing. How many times have they complained to you about the loud music coming from your apartment?
Your Honor, after that, they've called the police
Now, I'm talking
twice.
about before.
Before? Well, I have a letter right here from that Ernest wrote here saying how punctual and responsible and tenants that we are, if you'd like to read it. So
I would like to read it. I asked you a question. You
I
want to
haven't had
answer my
any-
question? Maybe the answer is never. So they've never complained about the loud music coming from your apartment?
No, Your Honor. I don't have any notices saying that we were
I didn't
loud.
ask you for notice. What I asked you about was, has anybody ever said to you, we can hear your music in our apartment?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, good. Did you write this letter indicating that they have been tenants since December of 1999 and they have always been responsible and punctual tenants?
Let me kind of...
The answer is either yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
And who did you write this letter to?
To the court of San Bernardino.
Why did you write this letter to the court?
At the time, they were being accused of I think it was stealing some jet skis. They were out in the desert driving these out in the river somewhere, and they had been accused or picked up and taken to jail for these jet skis. And so he came to me in confidence, said, I need a letter showing that I'm a good guy. And up at the date on that letter is probably maybe a year ago, I think.
August of 2001.
Yeah. And so, we know these people, And so I said, yeah, I'll give you a letter. I've never seen any jet skis. Other than
No,
him
you also said that they were responsible and punctual tenants.
Yeah, they are. They are. As far as they've never not paid the rent on a given month, but they are late all the time.
May I show you this, please? These are receipts of all the rents.
Your husband's, listen, you're not the manager. Your husband's the manager. Is that right? Are you employed or is he?
I'm sorry?
Are you employed as the manager or is he?
No, he is.
Then put the paper down. Your husband just said that they paid their rent on time. Is that right, sir? Don't go back because your wife is because she's a little taller than you are. I wouldn't go back. Do you understand?
No,
I'm not going to beat you up when you get home, sir.
Okay, basically...
Just tell the truth.
I'm
And we'll be
telling
just
the truth.
fine. They were responsible tenants as far as paying their rent. Maybe.
Up at that time, yes, at that time, okay?
Okay.
And then I started to get a lot of late rents after that. And so I've had...
How late?
Well, I
A
got
day,
the receipt.
2, 5?
No,
How many days?
I would get half in the middle of the month, and then a week later I'd get the other remainder. A couple of times they would give us checks and money orders. The checks would bounce, but of course money orders don't bounce. And it just went on and on like this, and I finally started
Can't
giving
be on
them...
and on like this. Listen to me, sir. You wrote this letter at the end of August. So the end of August, they were okay. We have September, October, November, and December.
Yeah, that's
Because
primarily when it started, yeah.
Listen to me. That's 4 months. September, October, November, and December. And the incident happened in January. So we're talking about in 4 months. So in 4 months, you told me they started to pay their rent late. Sometimes they paid with a bounced check. Sometimes they paid a half a month. And I mean, all those things happened in a 4-month period.
No,
so
not
let
at
me
all.
have September, October, November, and December's rent. I want to see it, the rent receipts. Let me see. Just September, October, November,
Well,
December.
They're kind of all in there. You have to...
Well, I'm not interested in all. I asked you for
Okay, well-
4 months. September, October, November, December.
I have January and February right here.
What word didn't you understand? September, October, November, December.
Show her these two.
I don't recall being late in those months.
Well, I asked this for the receipts. Nobody has those receipts. Is there
The
any
only
reason-
time that I got a write-up for being late was in January, and I have here that they didn't even put the check in. The check was still pending on the 16th. I have a receipt day that we paid the rent on the 7th.
I want to see that because that becomes important. Did you file eviction proceedings against them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let me
Here's
see.
the 15th and the 16th.
Let me see.
eviction
Can I
notice.
see the eviction proceedings that you filed against them?
Got a 3-day notice on the 15th.
This is it.
And the check wasn't pending till the 16th.
Just a minute. This is just half the rent, sir.
There's a money order here. Here's the receipt for that month. The check is on the Wells Fargo printout, and the money order is also paperclip to it.
Why did you pay?
We pay half and half. She pays half and I pay half.
I see.
It's the eviction procedure.
Well, this is crossed out.
Yeah, he tried to put that we paid on the 16th, and I made him cross it out and initial that we paid on the 7th.
Okay.
Because I knew you'd like to see that.
And I see this money order went in on the 7th. Now let me see the eviction proceedings. How many units are in your building?
22, ma'am.
22.
Mm-hmm.
Put your paper down.
Okay.
Put your paper down. I want you to listen to me very, very carefully, sir. You know all the tenants in the 22 units?
Yes, ma'am.
All the tenants.
Yeah.
Any of your tenants pay late?
We got a couple others.
I'm asking you, cut a couple. A couple is 2. You have more than 2?
No, ma'am.
How many other people, other than these 2 people, do you claim pay late? Just think very, very carefully, sir. Pay after the 1st of the month or the 2nd of the...
that because
No, you may not. Answer anything.
I'm the one that collects
You
the
may
rent.
not answer anything. Now, I said to you, how many of your tenants pay late? Day, or 2, a week late of the 22 apartments.
Well, after the 5th, it's considered, after the 3rd, actually, it's considered late. We have, it varies from month to month. There may be 2 or 3 from month to month that pay late once in a while.
How many are you evicting?
None.
You're evicting them, why?
For basically not getting half the rent half the month and half the rent the other half. This is the only apartment that does that.
No, I think that you're evicting them because they have a common wall that's annoying your wife.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think you're evicting them, because she would like somebody nice and quiet, maybe somebody who, you know, doesn't speak, because the walls are thin, and it may be that they're annoying. It may be that they're annoying. That you're annoying me just being there. That may be. It may be that they have created a nuisance because they play their radio and they're not considerate neighbors and they play it too close to where your wall is and they keep you up at night. But then be honest. Don't try to screw them around with this late rent business. That's what it is. I mean, I could tell for it is from reading your papers.
It's harassment, Your Honor.
And let me explain something to you, sir. You don't get your rent in on the 1st of the month. Now, technically, they have every right, if they want to say to you, your rent isn't on time, you have to move. They probably wouldn't have said it if otherwise you weren't annoying in the apartment. You weren't playing the radio loud, and, you know, to them loud. It may not be loud to you, but if the walls are very thin, then they hear what's going on in your apartment. But they technically have a right, if they want to evict you because you do not pay your rent on time.
Well,
on time is the 1st of the month, sir. Now, I believe that the defendant entered your apartment. I know she entered your apartment without just cause, and she entered your apartment because you were annoying her. Not that she was in fear for your life, Miss Torres. How much do you think that's worth?
Well, what did she think when she came in there and she saw us laying down naked, sleeping?
I don't know what she thought.
May I answer that question?
Sure.
I ran her out of my house, is what I did.
I'd like
You
to
know very well that you did not run me out of your house. You also know
Don't
very well...
speak to him. You said you want to answer the question.
He
Speak
did
to
not.
me.
He was not naked, first of all.
What difference does it make?
Because of the fact of he's saying he's lying.
What do you
He
mean?
was not naked.
You started the lie a long time ago, madam, when you said to me that you entered the apartment because you feared for her life.
Ma'am, I did not lie when I said that.
Yes, you did.
Are 2 couples not allowed to sleep naked?
Hey, Mr. Allen, I don't think you're cute, sir.
I'm sorry. I was in my birthday suit.
Just remember where you are and what it is that you hope to accomplish today.
Yes, Your Honor. I realize that.
Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. I told you when we started this, when you gave me the good afternoon, Your Honor, I said it's very, very nice. It's not going to help you. You did not enter the apartment because you feared for her safety. Otherwise, you would have sent your husband. Or you would have called the police. You entered his apartment without permission. You are not employed as the building manager. You are nothing more than another tenant in the apartment. Another tenant in the apartment could not jimmy open the lock of their apartment and go in to see if everything was okay or to check on the sound of the radio. That's really what you did. You entered their apartment and you trespassed. You had no reason to do that. And all I'm asking you is, what do you think that's worth?
I think it's worth if they... we're living there right now. We're not evicted. The owner of the apartment came to me on his own grounds and told me, do you want to stay in the apartment?
Don't tell me what the owner said to you. That's hearsay. I asked you a question. What was it worth? What do you believe it's worth? Her entering your apartment in the middle of the night without your permission.
All I want is first and last month's rent so we can move out of there so we don't have to be harassed anymore.
You're not... Well, listen. I don't think she has to pay you for that. You just told me. You just started to tell me that you're welcome to stay there in the apartment.
We don't want to stay there anymore.
So move. But I think that she has to be punished in some way for not only entering your apartment and some... I'm speaking.
Sorry.
Not only entering your apartment without your permission, for taking her husband's key and doing that, but also for lying to me about it. But I don't think that that's worth more than $500, and that's what you get. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Be on the calendar in the matter of Vickers versus Ruffin. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Mr. Vickers, it is your claim that the defendant, who is your former girlfriend, vandalized your car, which was being driven by your present girlfriend. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't see this. You didn't witness any of this.
No, ma'am.
So let's see. What date did this occur?
It happened on August 2nd going into August 3rd, probably about 12:30 or so. So I guess August 3rd, 2001.
And according to your complaint and the defendant's answer, you and the defendant have a child together. Is that right?
Yes.
A boy?
Yes.
How old?
He's 3.
And you live in different states?
Yes.
The defendant had driven to where you live with your son for the purpose of talking and you spending some time with your son. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And she drove down to where you lived on August 2nd.
Yes.
According to you, you stayed home for the day, spent some time with your son, but when he went to sleep, you left him with his grandfather?
Yes, ma'am.
And went out?
Yes.
For the evening?
Right.
I assume at some point you saw your present girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the present girlfriend.
Yes.
And at some point you exchanged cars with her. You took her car, she took your car because she wanted to drive your new car.
Yes.
And then you came home.
Yes, ma'am.
About what time did you get home?
I probably got home about 1 a.m.
But you were alone.
I was alone, yes.
And what happened when you got home?
When I got home, I was driving another vehicle. So the defendant wouldn't have recognized me because I was in a car that she wasn't familiar with. I drove down my street and I saw someone sitting on my front porch, but I didn't know who the individual was sitting on the front porch because I hadn't been expecting anyone. I made a right-hand turn, drove down a little bit, turned around and parked the vehicle, got out of the vehicle, and walked up to my house. And when I walked up, I recognized that it was her. She asked me where our son was. I told her that he was inside with his grandfather. She made a couple statements about how can I go out and leave my son with his grandfather when she drove all the way from Cleveland, Ohio to bring him with me. But the purpose of my leaving out was just, I was only out probably 4.5 hours, so my father was there. He was responsible for the child at the time, just to take my vehicle and exchange it, and I came right back.
Totally unnecessary, by the way.
Okay.
Totally unnecessary. Not necessary for your girlfriend to drive your car when you have a son who you hadn't seen in how long?
Probably about 2 weeks or so.
4 months.
4 months.
Hadn't seen him in 4 months.
Okay. So that was totally unnecessary for you to go out that evening. How long was he going to be there?
He was going to be there for the weekend.
So for the weekend, you give up the girlfriend, especially the girlfriend who has to have a new car to drive. So you can understand why she's mad. If you don't understand why she's mad, I'm going to tell you that I understand why she was mad.
Okay.
Okay? Let's start with that. You have an absolute right to be annoyed. You drove down so we could spend some time. You come back. You don't know whether he's gone for a half hour, 4 hours, 3 hours. All
Actually,
you know
I know how long. He was gone about 2 hours, an hour and a half.
Probably that long.
Yeah, because I was there, and I knew exactly where my son was because I'd spoken to his father. I was in the house, and I'd been there for quite some time.
And he was gone.
And he was gone, yes.
So you were really annoyed, and I really understand that. And if he doesn't, what can I tell you? Okay, so you had a verbal confrontation with her, and what happened?
The conversation turned where it became a physical confrontation now. She grabbed me in the collar, ripping my shirt. And I went into the house and called 911 and asked 911 to send an officer out to my home. So as I'm on the phone, I'm continuing trying to keep her at bay from further attacking me. So I hung up the phone from 911 and she continued to come after me. So I grabbed her and I put her down on the ground and she just totally just ripped my shirt off. At that time I got up, she took her belt off and began slinging her belt crazy. I ran back into the house, called 911 again, asking them to hurry up and send a police officer out to my address. By this time I'm inside waiting for the police officer to come and she's standing outside. When the police finally arrive, I come out, I tell the police officer what had happened and that I had placed a call. And she told the police officer that she wanted her son. I didn't have any objections to that. I told the police officer that she can have the son. Matter of fact, they could go up and get the child.
Was he awake or asleep?
Oh, he was asleep. The police officer informed both of us that since this was a domestic issue, that both of us could go to jail and the child would be put into foster care. So at that point, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I just went into the house, and her and the police officer remained outside and talked for a little while. She came back up, the police officer came back up, they went upstairs, got the child, and she and the police officer and the child left. I went back upstairs to go to bed, and that was the last time that I saw her.
Okay. Now, who witnessed the vandalizing of your car?
Both of these individuals here.
Step up, please. Tell me your name.
Jacqueline McLaren.
All right, Mr. McLaren. You're driving his car.
Yes.
What happened later that evening?
As I was driving his car, me and my friend was going to go to a party. It was an after party we were invited to.
An after party?
Yes. It was later than a normal party. We were outside for a while on the opposite side of the party, on the opposite side of the street. Then we made a U-turn, and as I was getting ready to do a parallel park, a black sedan pulled up beside us. And it was on my driver's side, and the person, Miss Ruffin, was looking at me, and she looked upset. And at first I didn't know who it was, and I was like, you know, who's this person? What's wrong with her? Why is she looking at me? Then I recognized her from some pictures that I had seen. And I said, oh, that's his son's mother. And she just kept looking at us, looking upset, and then she pulled up in front of me as if to cut me off, and then made a U-turn in the middle of the street and took off in the opposite direction.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jacqueline McLaren says she was driving her boyfriend's SUV when it was vandalized by his ex-girlfriend, Alice Ruffin. Jacqueline's boyfriend, Daryl Vickers, is suing for the cost to replace his rear window.
All right, Mr. McLaren. What kind of car were you driving?
It was a Montero, a truck.
What color?
Silver.
That was his truck?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So at that time, I decided that I wasn't going to park the car where I originally planned on parking it. So then I pulled up to the intersection, made another U-turn, and parked on the opposite side of the truck. When I parked, I stepped out of the truck and I noticed two gentlemen were standing outside, and this guy right here. And then I said, are you going to be out here for a while? And he said, yes.
Did you know him before?
No, I didn't, no. And I said, well, can you do me a favor and keep an eye on this truck? And he said, no problem. So then I went inside to the party, and when I got in, I just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel comfortable. So I kept looking out the window, like every now and then checking on the truck. I said maybe 20, 25 minutes. I noticed this young lady, she had something in her hand and she threw it at the back of the truck. And, you know, I stood there for a minute, you know, looking at it like, oh my goodness. And then I left the window, went to go get my girlfriend, and I told her what happened. So we left to go downstairs, and someone saying, who's in here driving a silver truck? You need to go outside and check on your truck. As I got outside, I saw him, and he said, this lady just threw a brick in your truck.
Okay, tell me your name, sir.
My name is Joe Lewis.
Did you know any of these people before?
No.
Tell me what you observed that night, and about what time was it?
I want to say about 12, more like 12:40.
What did you see?
I just came out of the store. Me and my cousin were talking. He lived directly across the street. She had said, when she had got out the truck, she said, if you guys are going to be standing here for a moment, you know, can you look
Keep
at
an
the
eye
truck?
on the truck.
Right. I say about 15 minutes later, I saw a black car pull down a side street. Young lady got out of the car. She walked towards the back of the vehicle. I didn't know she had an object in her hand, but all you heard was psh. You heard a big splash noise. Me and my cousin looked at each other like his windows just got busted. From there, she jetted back to her automobile. She did a U-turn.
Describe the automobile she was driving.
I just know it was black, four-door sedan. Had like white tan plates. Wasn't the New York State tags.
Did you recognize the lady?
Not really.
Could you identify her?
The clothing that she had on. Her hair could have been...
What kind of clothing did she have on?
Like light-colored pants. Could be pink, could be white.
Did you see if there was anybody else in the car?
No.
Couldn't see, or you didn't notice?
Didn't notice.
Didn't notice whether there was a child in the back of the car?
No, because she pulled off on the side street.
She pulled off on the side street and then came over to the car?
Walked right behind the truck.
And then just left?
Walked back to her car and pulled out.
So you couldn't tell me, as you were standing here today, if this is the young lady who did it?
From across the street? Mm-mm.
Okay. But you recognized her?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today. Okay, Ms. Ruffin, let me hear you.
Okay, well, I am here today, and I just want to say that I did not do what Mr. Vickers is saying that I did. Mr. Vickers is strapped for cash because I filed child support, and he's very, very, very bitter.
He may be very, very bitter. He's talking about an incident that occurred where he says you were so angry that you threw a rock at his car.
Okay, well, I didn't do it, and...
I think you did.
I don't... You think I did it?
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Oh, I think you did it.
All right.
I think you may have felt at that moment that you had the right to do it. You had the right to do something. If it wasn't throwing a rock at his head, you decided to do his car instead, because the closest thing to a man is usually his car. And if you couldn't get him, you were going to get his car. You behaved very badly that night, Miss Ruffin. Not just with the car, even before the car at his house. I can understand that you were angry.
What did I do at his house?
You became physical with him.
No. He became physical with me.
Really? Why would he call the police if he became physical with you?
Okay, let me just go back to the story that he said. I went to his family reunion and I saw him there. That was probably the second time that I'd ever seen his vehicle, so he says. When he left his family's get-together, he said, I'm going back home and I'm going to bed. You can come by later if you want to talk.
You mean that was on August 2nd?
This was on August 4th. This was Saturday, because I left early that morning. This was Friday night, Saturday morning.
Okay.
When I left the family reunion, I went over to a girlfriend's house who was having a bridal shower that weekend, and I sat with them for a while, and they were going out, and I was...
Just tell me what happened when you got back to his house and you found he wasn't there and you waited for him.
Okay, when I got back to his house, I sat... I talked to his father for a little bit.
Fine, you talked to his father. He finally came home. What I want to know is he finally came home.
Okay, well, this is why I'm going to tell you this, because I was sitting on his porch. I had just called a phone number that his brother had given me and said it was his cell phone. I called the phone, and a female answers. And I said, well, may I speak to Fahim? That's what I call him. And she says, who is this? I said, oh, no, who is this? She said, this is Jackie. I said, well, I'm looking for Fahim, and I hung up the phone. About 10 minutes later, he comes storming around the corner. And no, I wouldn't have recognized him because I didn't even see him get out of a vehicle. And he comes storming around the corner, get your stuff, get your things, get your son, get out my house. So when I proceeded to walk, I got up and I walked over to him. He slapped my glasses off my face. I can't see a thing without them. And he attacked me. But then I thought it was rather cruel for him to call 911 and say that I was attacking him and that I had a weapon.
Are you telling me you didn't take your belt off?
Oh, yeah, I took my belt off. Because I can't beat him. Look at him. Look at him. He hit me. He busted my lips.
That day, he busted your lip?
That night.
That night? Let me see the police report.
We didn't file one because they said we can't. They said if we filed a police report.
Did you bust her lip?
No, I didn't.
I don't believe he busted your lip at all.
I had blood all over my clothes.
If you had blood all over your clothes that was yours, they would have arrested him. Okay, Miss Ruffin, did you go to the hospital that night?
Yes, no, I went to the hospital when I returned home because I don't know anything about that.
You have a report
system.
From the hospital when you returned home?
I didn't bring it.
Your Honor, she lived in Rochester for over 10 years. She's more than familiar with the procedures of going to the hospital.
Okay, but I don't believe that you assaulted her, sir. I don't believe that you assaulted her. I believe she lost her temper.
I've never hit this man in my life until that night. He's always hit me.
Right. Can I see the bill for the car, please? What? She busted a car window. That's not $2,000 worth of damage.
She busted a rear window, broke all of the decals. She did a lot of damage to the vehicle. It was a rather big brick. She did a lot of damage. I also have other pictures that would indicate when she threw the brick through the rear window, there was a bottle of bleach in the back cargo area of my vehicle, and the brick bust the top of the bottle of bleach, spilling the bleach all over the back of the vehicle.
What year car is this, sir?
It's a 2001. It was a brand new vehicle. I had just bought it.
Had you ever told her that you just bought a new car?
No, I didn't.
Did you know he had just bought a new car?
No,
you told
actually,
me you'd seen it twice.
Right. He took my son to the barber shop, and we were talking outside the shop. He pointed up the street and said, "That's my new car." I was afraid
So you knew
to
he
tell
had a
you.
new car?
Well, he told me then, yeah.
Okay. Had you been paying Mr. Vickers regular child support for your son?
Pardon me?
Let me see if I can find words that will better, translate to you. Have you been paying regular child support for your son?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
How much?
About $643 a month.
Since when?
February of 2001.
Okay.
Since May. I filed for child support in February of 2001, and the first time he received money out of his check was in May.
Were you in court when they made the child support order?
No, Your Honor.
You were not?
No, ma'am.
Well, you chose not to appear.
Yes, I did choose not to.
Oh. So, Mr. Vickers, if you chose not to appear when you were summoned to court, then they made the order without you.
Yes.
And then you didn't pay it for a while.
No, I paid it.
No. You didn't pay it for a while because if you chose not to appear in court, then they made the order, they had to transmit it to you.
Yes.
Now it's being taken out of your salary?
Yes.
All right, and it just started to be taken out of your salary effective when?
Probably April of 2001.
She says
It's at
May.
the end of May. It was at the end of May.
So that she started to get the money in May.
Right.
Okay. Now, you said you took him back to court for more child support?
No, I did not. What happened was he said that it was illegal that they were taking that amount of money out of his pay, and I guess he filed for misrepresentation of fact. So in September, we had another court appearance. We had a court appearance, and that's where this young lady may have seen me or my vehicle, but I know that she was with him.
Just a second. Did they modify the order?
No, they didn't.
They left it at 643?
Yes.
Did he appear at that court?
Yes, he appeared at that time.
Sure. Didn't appear the first time. Did you think it would just go away if you didn't appear?
I thought so, yes.
You thought wrong. Okay. How much do you pay for the car every month?
$398 a month.
So you pay $400 a month for your new car, plus insurance and stuff?
Yes.
So you pay almost as much for your car as you pay for your child?
No, my monthly car insurance is about $120 a month.
So that's $520. You pay $643 for your son. $643 also includes some arrears, right?
There was $1,800 in arrears.
Right. So it's not $643. It's really less than $643. They just tacked on an amount for arrears.
Yes, right.
So I'm right.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
pay as much for your car as you do for your child.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And he's very bitter about it.
Well, he may be very bitter about it. That doesn't give you the right to break his window.
I didn't break his window.
Yes, you did.
I
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,941. That's all.
Parties are excused. You see 3 on the calendar in the matter of Welch versus Wooten. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats, please.
Well, my reading of the complaint and the answer in this case indicates to me that this was a monumental example of bad judgment on a lot of people's parts. Ms. Welch, you want the defendant and his son, co-defendant, to pay for damage to a car that was being driven by your son. It seems to me this was a retaliatory act, according to you.
Yes.
Or something that was done by the defendant's either one son or two. The defendant was there in a parking lot. They all got together to rumble. What's going on? Were you there?
No, ma'am.
Who was there?
My son and his friend.
Son and friend, step up here. Miss Welch, why don't you sit down, please? Who's the son?
Me.
Your name is Chad,
Yes, ma'am.
and you are?
Josh Laughlin.
You're Josh. So we have Chad on one side, Josh on the other. You don't mind if I call you Josh, do you?
No, ma'am.
All right. What is your name, sir?
Rusty.
Rusty. And this is your father.
Yes, ma'am.
Your name?
Justin.
Justin, you were there too?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah. But so were you, Mr. Wooten.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you tell me, Chad, how this started?
Well, they called me and told me to...
Who called you?
It was Larry and Justin. And
Larry?
Yes, ma'am.
Not here. Larry and Justin.
Yes, ma'am.
Justin, raise your hand. Step up. Move over a little bit. That's it. So Justin called you.
Yes, ma'am.
So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did Justin say when he called you?
He asked if we would come to the video store so we could talk and get the problem straight.
Now, what kind of problem had you had with Justin?
They said I broke into their house.
When did they accuse you of breaking into their house?
About a month before this happened.
Did you try to break into their house?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever try to break into anybody's house?
No, ma'am.
No.
Neither one of those statements are true, ma'am.
You mean that he didn't try to break into your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
It's really not important. All right, so he called you because he said that you tried to break into his house a month before.
Yes, ma'am.
And he wanted to get the matter straight at the parking lot of a video store.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what did you say?
I went to the store because it was the middle of the day in the middle of town, and I didn't expect nothing bad to happen there.
Well, what time of the day was it?
About 12:30 or 1.
Did you go alone?
No, I had...
No, you went with Josh.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Who else?
Zach.
So you went with Zach, too, who also isn't here,
Yes, ma'am.
along with Larry, who isn't here. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, were Josh and Zach at your house when you got the call?
No, we was on the way to Zach's house.
Who was on the way to Zach's?
Me, Josh, and Zach. They called...
When you got the call, were you there alone?
Oh, ma'am.
You were there with Josh.
And Zach was with me.
So all three of you were at your house when you got the call?
No, we was going down the
No,
road.
I want you to pay attention. You received the telephone call at your house. Who was at your house with you at the time you received the telephone call?
I wasn't at my house.
Where were you?
I got the phone call when I was going down the road. They called the cell phone.
Oh. Who has a cell phone?
Zach.
So he didn't call your number, he called Zach's number.
Yes, ma'am.
How'd you have Zach's number?
No, I've had repeated calls from him before, and it was on my caller ID, so I knew where I could reach Chad at.
Was he a friend of yours?
No,
But you knew that the boys were going to be together,
always.
the three of them,
I don't know. I didn't know Josh was going to be. I know Chad's always with him.
with Zach,
Somebody.
with somebody. All right. So Chad, Josh, and Zach. You reached him on the cell phone, said you're going to meet him at the video store. So you pile in your car, you're in your car already, and you take off to the video store.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was your intention, sir, when you called him?
To get at the bottom of him breaking into the house.
What do you think we pay police for?
They wasn't going to do nothing about it.
So what were you going to do about it?
See if he really did it.
And how did you intend to do that?
Get him to tell the truth.
And how did you intend to get him to tell the truth?
I asked him.
You were just going to ask him. You were going to say, did you try to break into my house? And you thought he was going to answer you. Is that what you thought?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you kidding me or what?
Telling the truth.
Telling the truth. All right. And how many of you went to the video store?
Me and Larry.
But you didn't go just with Larry.
No, my father and Rusty, they followed us because they heard the phone call.
Who heard the phone call?
When we called them, my dad picked up the phone and he heard what Zach and them said they were going to do to me, and that's why they followed me out there.
Well, what did they say they were going to do to you?
And I was grounded at the time. He said when I left my house that I was going to get shot, and that's why Dad followed me out there.
So let me understand this. You called him to arrange for a meeting to ask him a question. Why did you try to break into my house? In response to that, he told you that he was going to kill you.
Zach did.
Zach, I don't care who did. Zach did, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you decided to go anyway.
Yes.
And not only did you decide to go anyway, but your father and Rusty decided to go in a second car.
Yes, ma'am.
Why, Mr. Wooten?
I wanted to make sure that the boy was not carrying a gun, that he was going to shoot my son.
And how did you intend to find out if he wasn't carrying a gun?
Asked him, which I did.
You were going to ask him,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have a gun and do you intend to shoot my son?
Well, no, I asked him if he was toting a gun.
You said, well, are you toting a gun?
Yes, ma'am.
And so after he confessed to the attempted burglary, he was going to confess to carrying a gun. Is that what you thought?
Well, he pulled up his shirt and showed us he wasn't
He showed us
carrying
he
a
wasn't
gun.
toting a gun.
In his shirt?
Yes, ma'am.
Did any of you ever see Bruce Willis? Carries him in his shoe. And
He had on shorts. It was during the summer.
So now we've got two cars going from your team. The adult mature father and one son, and you with your friend Larry, and you with your two buddies.
Yes, ma'am.
And why don't you tell me what happened when you got to the parking lot at the video store?
When I got there, it was just Justin and Larry. They walked out of the video store.
Justin and Larry.
Walked out of the video store. Yes, ma'am. And then Randy and Rusty jumped out of the car and followed behind them, and they started in on Zach, asking him about a gun, telling him to raise his shirt up and all this. And he raised his shirt up, and then they asked him how old he was, because they knew he was too young, and he said how old he was, and they called him a liar, and then he told him he was 21, and Randy slapped him in the face. And after when he did that, they was all coming.
Just a second. Randy, did you slap him in the face?
No, ma'am, I hit him.
You hit him?
Yes, ma'am.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Chad Parker and his friend Josh Lawson say they agreed to a brawl with 17-year-old Justin Wooten and his brother Rusty. The boy's father, Randy Wooten, claims he accompanied his sons to make sure the fight was fair.
Okay. Why did you hit him, sir?
He had an attitude, you know, when he pulled his shirt up. He said, no, I'm not toting a piece. And I know the boy was older than what he was saying he was.
So you hit him?
I hit him.
In the face?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened?
After he did that, they started coming towards me. All of them was coming towards me. So I got a bat out of my car and ran to the store and told them they needed to call the police or something bad was going to happen, and they refused to call the police. And when I was in the store, Rusty kicked the mirror off my car and kicked the side of my car. Then he picked Josh up and was choking. I don't know what he was doing to him. He had him in the air and wouldn't let him down.
Who had you in the air?
Rusty Wooten.
Rusty. Glad you confessed. This is a wonderful lineup. Why did you have him in the air?
Well, the way everybody was positioned, my dad was in front of Josh and he was walking towards you, and I thought he was going to do something from behind. So I grabbed him from behind, and Justin told me that Josh didn't have nothing to do with the break-in. He was just with the wrong people. So I let him go, and I said, I'm sorry. I apologized, shook his hand, and that was that. I did punch his mirror, but it was because of my only excuse is anger. Is either punch the mirror or punch a minor and possibly go to jail for assault to a minor. So I chose the mirror.
So,
and I'm ready to pay that. I have an estimate on what a factory mirror would cost for his car.
all right. So far, is everything that I've heard pretty much accurate the way it
No,
happened?
ma'am.
Well, he said yes, and he says yes. You say no.
No.
What was different?
The phone call, Chad said to meet them at the video store.
Yeah.
Justin and Larry was inside. Rusty and I was parked at the front door. They walked up, started in the video store. Chad saw me sitting in the car. He turned and ran to his car. And that is when he got the ball bat and was swinging at me and running across the parking lot at the same time, and he was
that
swinging.
before or after you slapped his friend?
That was before.
That was before you slapped his friend?
Yes, ma'am.
So he's running around like a lunatic with a baseball
Yes,
bat,
ma'am.
and you go over to his friend, ask if he's got a gun. You didn't like his attitude, and you slapped, and you, excuse me, hit him.
Yes, ma'am.
After the mirror was broken, what happened?
After the mirror was broke, I went to leave. And when I went to leave, Randy was stood in front of the car, and finally they left and got in his car, and Justin and Larry stayed, went back in the video store. When I was leaving, I hit Justin's car with a bat.
You hit Justin's car with the bat. Were you in your car when you did that?
Oh, ma'am, I got out.
Because you were angry?
Yes, ma'am. And they already did it to mine and hit them, which I know I shouldn't have did it, but I did.
And then what happened?
We left, and Justin's, I don't guess he did, but Larry got in the car with somebody else and followed us. And he hit the side of my car with a tire tool and then threw it at the back, and it stabbed in the back of the car.
With a
tire tool, with a sharp end on the one side, and then it's got the lug wrench on the other side.
It's not one of my usual pieces of equipment that I carry in my purse. But I assume it made a hole in your car.
Yes, ma'am, in the back and in the right quarter panel.
Was that your mother's car?
Yes, ma'am.
By the way, where was your mother when all this was going on?
At home.
Did you tell your mom that you were going over to the video store?
No, ma'am, when I got the call, I wasn't at home. They had stayed the night with me the night before, and then we left that
stayed the
morning.
night with you?
Josh and Zach.
Oh, okay. Now, what I want to know is, at what point, Justin, did you ask Chad whether he had attempted to burglarize your house?
I told him on the phone.
No. You were meeting at the video store because you wanted to ask him why he attempted to break into your home. And you told me a few moments ago that that was the sole purpose of your going there. And that you also told me that you expected him to answer you. So I've just heard a whole bunch of things going on, but I haven't heard at what point you asked him, Chad, why did you attempt to burglarize my house?
Your Honor, there wasn't no doubt in my mind because my father called him.
So then what'd you go there for?
Truthfully?
Truthfully? Well, of course, don't you see how foolish I'm making you look?
No.
Well, I'm making you look foolish, sir, because I want you to tell me the truth.
To beat the crap out of Chad.
Right. Now we get there. Not just to ask him whether he attempted to burglarize your house. So you went there, not only you, but your father and your brother and your friend Larry all went there to beat him up.
No. Me and Larry went because we knew he had people with him. My dad
So
was just
you
there
went, and your dad went for what purpose?
to make sure there weren't no guns there.
So he said it's okay if you go and beat him up as long as there are no guns.
Verify, yeah.
No, just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay if you go beat him up as long as there are no guns. Is that the idea? Yeah, let's just go have a fair fight. How much do you weigh?
Me, 300 pounds.
How much do you weigh?
135.
Is that fair? Is that fair?
I mean, you know, if he's going to
No, is that fair?
I can't, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, if you weigh 300 pounds, and he weighs 135 pounds, and his friend looks like he weighs 135 pounds after a good shower, does that sound fair to you?
He shouldn't
like
put
a fair
himself in
fight?
them situations.
What?
He shouldn't put himself in the situations with me.
That's what police are for. Quite frankly, Mr. Wooten.
Yes, ma'am.
These two people are idiots. Those two people are idiots. You give them the benefit of the doubt because they're young idiots.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not a young idiot.
No, ma'am.
My question is, are you an old idiot? How would you permit your sons to become involved in a situation where you know there is going to be violence? Not only do you know, you anticipate there's going to be violence, but your son's intention is to be violent. How do you permit your sons to do that? And follow them to make sure that it's just a fair fight. How do you do that?
How do I do it?
Yeah.
This between Justin and Chad has been going on for years.
So?
It's always never Chad on Justin. You know, he'll never, you know, I don't have no problem with them fighting fair. But it's always Chad and 2 or 3. You're going to jump on one boy. And
How many children do you have?
I have 3.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a carpenter, contractor.
I've always thought that it was the responsibility of parents to try to discourage the resolution of disputes by acts of violence. And I don't care what kind of violence it is. You say it's a fair fight. People get killed in a fair fight.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's say he didn't have a gun. Let's say he had a knife or a screwdriver or a lug wrench. And instead of throwing the lug wrench and hitting the car, one of your team threw it and it went through the windshield and it hit somebody in the head and they got killed. Well, we didn't mean for that to happen. All we meant was to go there and have a fair fight. Now, that doesn't excuse you two idiots.
No, ma'am.
How many times have you been arrested, sir?
Twice.
For what? Let's make sure we get it right.
Theft property.
What kind of property?
An amp.
An amp.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the second time
Fair to appear.
on that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. You on probation?
No, ma'am.
Were you tried?
Yes, ma'am. They just gave me I had to do my suspended sentence, and then they ended the sentence
When was that?
about a month and a half or 2 ago.
And when did this take place?
About a month ago.
So you were still involved with your suspended sentence?
No, I did my suspended sentence
So
in
this
the
was a
county.
couple of weeks later?
Yes, ma'am.
The dates on these are wrong. We got the actual police report from where he busted his taillight out at the video store.
Well, I want to know, was it about the same time as he was getting off a suspended sentence, he was involved with something else?
I don't know when his suspended sentence was,
I don't
but I
know
can
either.
tell you
I just
what.
want to know how dumb he is. All right. And what about you, sir? Let's get to you. Arrested? You. Ever been arrested?
No.
You? You?
No, ma'am.
Didn't think so. Figured he was. So you want them to pay for the damage to your mother's car?
Yes, ma'am.
Forget it! Forget it. He had no right to go there. Looking for trouble. It found him. They're not going to get paid for their car, for the baseball bat, for the dings on the car. Good. You have to keep better control of him. Now you can stand up. You got to keep better control of him. Only saving grace is that you weren't there in the car with him. You weren't there with him. This father, who doesn't see anything wrong with what his boys did, I think it was the ultimate act of betrayal as a parent to encourage his 2 children to engage in a brawl that could have ended up with somebody seriously hurt. And if you don't get it, Mr. Wooten, I'm really sorry for you. We live in a civilized society. We're supposed to anyway. Lots of bad things going on around us. You're not supposed to set a bad example for your children. You're supposed to set a perfect example for your children. And a perfect example isn't, I'll come with you to make sure there are no guns and you can just beat the crap out of them, which is exactly what he says he intended to do. And if you didn't want to be involved with it, you shouldn't have gone.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, good. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may in the matter of Jones versus Callahan. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats.
All right, this case is a little complicated, so let me go through the facts as I understand them. This is your brother?
Yes, ma'am.
For some reason which is unimportant at this moment, you went to jail.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had a car.
Yes.
The car was towed when
Yes,
you were
ma'am.
incarcerated. According to the complaint, your sister, who had formerly dated the defendant, asked the defendant if he would pay the towing charges on the car and the impound fees on the car, and that when your brother got out of jail, he would repay him and he would give him the car back.
Yes.
Your brother got out of jail, and the defendant, stop playing with your papers, pay attention, because maybe I'm getting something wrong. Your brother got out of jail, and the defendant, according to you, refuses to return the car.
Yes, ma'am. He refused to return any phone calls.
The defendant says that he did return the car, and he is counterclaiming. He says that you, Mr. Jones, stole a gun that belonged to him, and that you, Miss Jones, have a large screen television set that belongs to him in your home. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you want to be reimbursed for the towing fees that you paid for his car, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you understand that?
No, but I'm waiting to see it unfold.
Okay. Well, I tried to simplify it. It was really very... Okay. When did you go to jail, sir?
November 1st of 2001.
How long were you there?
I was there for 4 months.
Okay. And you called the defendant. Were you still dating at the time?
Yes, we were.
What did you say to him?
I asked him if he would get the car out of impound for me because I could not afford it, and that we would pay it back as soon as my brother was released from jail.
And what did he say?
He said fine.
How much were the impound fees?
$538.
Now you tell me your version of the conversation that you had with her about getting the car out of impound.
She explained to me that while her brother was in jail, that I'd be able to get the car out of impound in replace of the stolen gun.
No. Look at me. Look right here. She called you and said what?
She called me and told me there's a note here saying her brother will give you the car because of the stolen gun. So I said, well, okay, I'll accept that
I don't
offer.
agree with that.
Just a second. Who has this note? Do you have the note?
Actually, she has the note.
You have the note?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see it, please.
This is the contract we had on the car. He refused to sign it because he said it.
Just a second. Okay. Well, nobody signed this, and this doesn't say anything about a gun. What about this gun?
There was a gun that he claims was stolen out of my house. I have 2 minor children, this being one of them. My daughter is 2 years old. I had asked him numerous times not to bring a gun into my house.
Yes.
We went to visit my friend in the hospital, and when we came back, he told me that his gun was stolen out of my house, and I didn't even know it was still in there. I had told him over and over again not to leave a gun in my house with my minor children. So I don't really know what happened to the gun.
You said you saw a note where Mr. Jones here confessed to having stolen your gun?
Yeah, actually, it was in one of his letters that he sent while he was in jail.
Well, where is the letter?
Actually, she has it.
You have a letter?
I don't have any with me. I have just...
Did you get a letter from your brother with regard to a stolen gun?
My brother sent me a letter saying if it was possible for me to please get out his car out of impound fees. He didn't care what I had to do it, to just get it out. I told him then I would ask Jimmy to get the car out of impound for me, and that when Matt got released from jail that he would then pay for the car because I didn't want anything to do
I
with it.
have that information. I'm asking you about a note with regard to his confessing that he stole a gun.
No, ma'am.
Did you take his gun?
No, I didn't. I have talked to numerous detectives as well in this case, and they acquitted me of the charges, and they don't feel that I've taken it, so...
Taken it.
Taken it. Sorry.
Detectives don't acquit you. They just have to have evidence in order to
They drop
arrest
the case.
you.
They dropped the
In any
case.
event, there's no proof that he took the gun.
Exactly.
Sounds logical to me, sir, very logical to me, that your girlfriend would call and ask you to do this for her, and that you would return the car. But your defense is that you returned the car. Tell me about that.
Actually, on January 8th, she gave me a call, threatened me, saying that if I don't return the car within a couple days, that her and her brother would come looking after me. That weekend on the
I don't agree with that
on the
either.
12th.
Don't speak unless I'm looking at you.
That weekend on the 12th, I told one of my friends to help escort me to drop off this VW Jetta to Don Marie's residence. So eventually, he drove his Toyota, and I drove the Jetta to her house. We dropped off the keys in the mailbox, which is in front of her doorway. And for the reason I did not make contact with her, she has filed a stalking charge on me prior to these occasions.
Did you report the car stolen?
No, they told us we had to take it to small claims court and get it back.
He doesn't have it.
But he did have it, and he had it at the time, and he had never dropped it off to my house.
How do you
ever.
know that?
Because if I'm not home, somebody else is there.
I don't know whether somebody else is there or not. He doesn't have the car. And he certainly can't use the car because he doesn't have any proof of ownership. He can't have it insured. So I suggest you call and report the car stolen because he doesn't have it. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. Now, you can have the car back, but you still owe him some money because he got the car out of impound. You promised to pay him back. Why didn't you pay him back?
We've made a number of chances to try and contact him. In the stalking order that he was suggesting, I went with her to the court. We ended up dropping the stalking order, saying we just want the car back, then we can all go our own separate ways. He refused to contact us. He refused to call us. He says that he's not doing the deal no more. We have the money, and we've offered to pay him several times.
Well, he certainly can't sell the car without a certificate of title, which leads me to believe that unless he's just merely being vindictive and dumped it in a lake or something, which I have no proof of, that it has absolutely no value to him whatsoever.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dawn Jones says ex-boyfriend James Callahan refuses to return her brother's car. Dawn says when her brother Matthew was arrested, James got the car out of impound and never gave it back.
Okay. Now tell me about this big screen TV.
All right, I have the receipt here. On 10/8/01, I went down to Circuit City with her son to purchase a TV. For the reason is our TV that she had at the time was was not reasonable. So we eventually purchased a 27-inch flat screen Panasonic TV. I do have other things in her house, and I could not receive that. I couldn't bring that.
Just a minute. We're not there yet. The TV that she had was not a good one, so you went with her son and bought a TV and brought it to her house.
Correct.
What makes you think this is your TV?
I actually purchased it.
I don't care if you purchased it. If you purchased it and made a gift to her, then it's not yours. I don't care if you purchased it. All right, let me hear your version of the TV.
Thank you, okay. He was liking to flash money around everywhere he went. He was flashing money in my face. He also was, giving me...
TV.
Several gifts, okay? He gave me the TV. He put it in my name. I have the receipt.
I want you to tell me.
He left the house one day. He came back with this huge TV, and I said, what are you doing? I cannot pay you for this TV. He said, don't worry, Marie, it's a gift. You can have it. I'm not going to take it from you or your kids. Here's my son, who was with him when he went to the shopping.
Let me see the receipt.
Those are receipts for everything he's countersuing me for.
No, I'm not interested in everything. I'm just interested in the TV.
All right.
Sold to Dawn Jones.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, when you give a gift, you don't take it back, sir. If the relationship didn't work out, it doesn't mean you get the TV back. What you do get back is the $538 that you laid out for the towing fees for the VW. That's what you get back. Period. You go to the police and take care of your car.
Will do.
Good. Have I resolved that? Did you understand it?
I understood it perfectly.
Perfect. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't know what his problem is, but he is severely mental.
There are certain times where if you're really nice, you let your guard down, people will, intend to take advantage of that.
He broke into my house and woke me up while I was sleeping, doing nasty things.
She's in distress right now, and she's trying to, make me look bad.
He's psycho. He's psycho.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Bullock versus Green. Step forward, please.
25-year-old student Corus Bullock is suing former friend, 25-year-old student Ernest Green, for breaking his windshield in a drunken fit.
Mr. Bullock, the defendant is or was a friend or acquaintance of yours, and according to your complaint, you gave him a ride home from someplace when he was drunk. He went crazy in your car and did damage to the windshield of your car. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so tell me when this happened.
On January 19th, it was a Monday, it was, because of the Martin Luther King event that was going on in St. Pete, Florida.
Okay, tell me how it came to be that he was in your car.
It came to be because I gave Mr. Green a call that evening asking him what he was doing for that day, because I had just met Mr. Green probably about a week before that. And he was like, give me a call sometime and, we'll hang out or whatever. So I gave him a call and I asked him, what he was doing for that day, and he was telling me about the event that was going on in St. Pete. So I asked him, would he like to go? And he was like, yes, we can go down there.
Okay, and was he drinking at the time?
At the time that I picked him up, no, he wasn't.
Well, when did he start to drink?
He started to drink on our way to the event because...
In the car?
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, he was drunk at the time he did this damage to your car.
I was actually drunk. I had drunk some drinks, but I was not drunk, Your Honor.
I'm going to get to you in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, he actually hadn't started drinking until we was on our way to the event. He asked me to stop at the liquor store on our way to the event. And he, he offered, me if I wanted anything I drink. I was like, no, I'm fine, So I was like, we'll stop and get you something. So as we stopped and got him something on our way to the trip, he had started drinking or whatever.
What was he drinking?
I can't recall the actual name of the beverages.
I was drinking cognac.
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 What time in the morning was this?
It was not in the morning.
What time was it?
It was around 7 o'clock.
In the evening?
In the evening.
And what kind of an event were you going to?
We went to a parade. Also,
Just a second. You were going to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday?
Oh, yeah. I was not drunk. I had some drinks.
Pay attention to my question. You were going to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, and you decided that the appropriate tribute to Martin Luther King was to drink cognac.
Yeah, actually,
just pay attention to my question. The appropriate tribute to this leader was to drink cognac on your way to the parade.
No, actually, that wasn't it. Actually, Mr. Bullock had a couple drinks earlier, too.
I'm talking about you.
Hold on, Your Honor, that's a false statement. I didn't have anything to drink.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking to him. Now I'm not talking to you anymore. Let's get to the windshield, please.
Yes, ma'am. Earlier that day, I got a call from one of my other friends who was telling me that he was throwing a little private party at an after-hour event. So after we left the Martin Luther King event, on our way back, I told Mr. Green about the event. He asked me, could he come? And at the time, I knew he had been drinking or whatever, and I was like, well, we'll take you home first, and then I'll come back and get you. And then he made a statement that he wasn't ready to go home because he knew if he went home, his girlfriend would not let him back out.
Excuse me, Your Honor, that was not true.
So when I took him there or whatever, I said, well,
you took him to the party.
Right.
It wasn't an event. It was a party, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, so let's not say event. We went to a party, and
We
you
went
took him
to
to
a
the
party.
party. Did he continue to drink at the party?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
We haven't gotten to the windshield yet. When are we going to get to the windshield? I'm losing
We're getting
patience.
to the windshield right now, ma'am.
Good.
All right. Well, we were at the party. That's when he started getting a little belligerent, and one of the actual bouncers saw that his attitude was rude towards some of the females in the club, that he was grabbing on them and harassing the women. And he said, "You're all going to have to take him home." And I said, "That's not a problem." I said, "I'll take him home." On our way going down the interstate, Mr. Green's attitude had really changed. I mean, he had started getting very rude, loud. He had started, saying some obscene things.
Where was he sitting?
He was sitting in the passenger seat.
Excuse me, Your Honor, that's not my character.
Just a second.
It's not of my character.
Don't interrupt. All right, so he's rude, he's belligerent, he's using bad language. Get to the windshield.
So we were approximately about a block from his home, and he had just started really getting loud, and before I knew it, he had started swinging at the windshield like this, going like this, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And before I knew it, I looked up, and my windshield was cracked, and we was about a block from his home.
And he cracked the windshield with his what?
With his fist.
Do you have a picture?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
Yeah, if I broke a windshield, cracked the windshield, I'm pretty
Am
sure.
I looking in your direction, Mr. Green?
Okay, sure.
What time was this that you took him home?
It was about 12:30, almost going on 1, about a quarter to 1.
And you picked him up at what time?
I picked him up about 6 o'clock, 6:30.
What time did you get to the liquor store?
We made it to the liquor store about 6:45.
So he started to drink cognac at 6:45?
Yes, ma'am.
And it would be fair to say that he drank from 6:45 until about 12:30, a quarter to 1?
Yes, ma'am.
No, it wasn't, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, Mr. Green.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen to me very carefully,
Yes,
sir.
I can.
You remember going home in the car with Mr. Bullock?
Of course I do.
Good. Tell me what happened.
No kind of way was I out of sync. Yes, I had some drinks, but that's no kind of way to say that someone's drunk.
Let me ask you this. You're at the club, and everybody is having a good time at the club?
We all had a good time at the club.
Great.
So, but no kind of way did I act out of character.
Okay. So. Did you ask Mr. Bullock to take you home at about 12:30 or quarter to 1?
Yes, I did ask him to take me home.
Tell me what you said to him when you asked him to take you home.
Well, I felt myself getting a little bit out of sync.
What does that mean, out of sync?
Out of sync means when you had one too many drinks, then you're just ready to go home.
Okay, so you felt as if you had too much to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I have that kind of judgment. So, I mean, that's how I know. No kind of way could I have broken his windshield.
Shh, I didn't ask windshield yet. I'm not there, Mr. Green. So it's your testimony that you're at the club, and you were drinking at the club.
Of course I drank.
and that you felt as if you were a little out of sync.
Exactly.
So you said, would you please drive me home?
Exactly.
Because you were being responsible.
Exactly.
Is that right, Mr. Bullock?
No, ma'am, that statement is false.
Of course it's false. Are you suggesting to me, Mr. Green, that the proprietor of this club didn't ask that you leave?
I never had anyone come up to me saying, I want you to leave.
You weren't behaving in any way that was irregular, a little bit high or a little bit inebriated at the club?
Well, a little bit intoxicated, of course. That's the reason why I'm afraid to go home, of course. But I don't.
So you were acting a little bit drunk?
No, I'm not drunk, of course. When you're drunk, you're like falling down or something on the floor. I was not drunk.
Not everybody falls down on the floor, sir. Some people are drunk and they continue to stand up. See, what I find unusual, Mr. Green, is if you're at the club and you're drinking and you're having a good time and you're really not drunk and you're dancing and everybody else is staying at the club, it takes a person of very strong character to say, I've had a little too much to drink. Would you please drive me home?
You don't believe that that can happen?
It can happen.
Okay.
Unless there's a broken windshield. Go ahead.
I don't exactly know how the windshield was broken. I think that Mr. Bullock may have went out somewhere else after he dropped me off and something happened to his car and he's trying to pin this on me.
And he's just blaming it on you.
I believe that might have been what happened, but I break a windshield. What reason would I have if someone I just met to break their windshield?
Especially someone who has been very nice to you. Gave you a call, said, come on, let's go spend the day. We'll go down to the parade, then you can come to a party with me afterwards, right?
That is correct.
So you think that someone who acted like a person who wanted to be your friend would drop you off and then something would happen to his windshield and then he would say to himself, I'm going to blame Mr. Green for this.
What other reason would I have to come on this show and prove myself if I knew I was guilty?
It's possible, Mr. Green, that you don't remember breaking his windshield, that you were so drunk you don't remember.
Well, I just explained to you that I wasn't drunk.
Of course you were drunk. You had been drinking for over 5 hours.
No, I wasn't. I just said
Cognac, not a little beer.
I was not drinking over 5 hours now.
Sure you were.
You be in a hospital, you drink for over 5. You be in like intox or something.
Well, that's what we're saying, Mr. Green, because after the first 5 or 6, you don't remember. You just want that buzz to continue. What kind of damage was done to your car, Mr. Bullock?
Besides the windshield, ma'am, that was it.
Okay, and how much did it cost you to have it fixed?
The list price was $325.
I asked you how much it cost you to have it fixed.
I only paid $144.45.
All right. Mr. Green, just add this $144.25 to the cost of the bottle of cognac. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
The matter of Lillard versus Deese Hogan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats.
All right. Miss Lillard, you rented a room from someone by the name of Chris Davidson.
That's correct.
When did you rent this room?
It was the 1st of October.
How did you find the room?
Chris is a good friend of mine. I've known him for quite a while.
Okay, this is Chris Davidson. I want you to stand up here, Mr. Davidson, because I'm going to have several questions for you. This young lady right here is your wife, but you're separated in the process of getting a divorce. What's your last name?
Deese.
Your complaint is that you rented a room, you were forced out of the house, and subsequently, both of these defendants who moved into the house destroyed or took your property.
It's gone. I don't know where it is.
It's gone, you know. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. How long had you been separated from your wife on October 1st of 2001?
I would say what time? Just
Don't ask
3 weeks,
her.
Maybe 3 weeks.
When did you move out of the house, Mr. Dietz?
The first part of September. I'm not sure on the date.
All right, and where did you go?
It was in the same city, but quite a distance away.
Had you sought that residence before you moved out? Did you have a place to go?
Yes, I did. Well, no, I didn't. Not in the beginning.
Where did you go?
Stayed with several people, with my daughters.
Okay. How old are your daughters?
14 and 13.
How many years were you married?
17.
Can I state something?
Yes.
She's just stated the fact that she said she had nowhere to go. They had a house rented that they both went to. And
Who's
rented
both? You mean
her
these
and
two
Hogan?
people who were
Yes, they
holding
did.
hands?
I came home to an empty house.
These two people who were holding hands
Yes, Your Honor.
moved someplace together?
Yes, they went and sought a house and rented it together.
Oh, okay. They are holding hands, aren't they?
Looks like it.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, so they left the house
Yes, with my kids.
with the two children?
Yes.
Had you discussed their moving out before?
No, ma'am.
Now, when you say you came home and found an empty house, what does that mean?
I came home and my kids, he had moved my kids out and all the furniture that they wanted.
Wait a minute, we never even took no furniture out of the house when Miss Deese left that house, okay? Period.
Okay, you took nothing out of the house?
Nothing came out of that
Beds,
house.
all the kids' beds, dressers.
Okay, Mr. Hogan, look at me, sir.
Yes,
and would you drop her hand? I mean, we're not at a movie theater. When you moved out that day, did you take any of the children's furniture?
Yes.
So you took furniture?
Yes, ma'am. We took
You
children's
took the
kit.
children's furniture. Okay. And the fact that you were moving out that day had not been discussed with him. Is that right, Ms. Dees?
I had warned him previously, yes, that I would be leaving.
You didn't tell him that you were leaving that day. Is that correct?
No.
All right. Then you rented a room in the house to the plaintiff.
Yes.
Then, according to what I've read in these papers, you received a phone call from your wife that
Actually,
she
the
wanted to come home.
First phone call I got was from him stating that, can I speak frankly here?
Please, that's
Come
what
get
we
the
hear.
crazy bitch, I don't want her no more. That's what I received the calls.
And when was that?
He's lying.
November, or around Thanksgiving. But
Now, Miss Dees,
yes,
there did come a time when you moved back into the residence.
Right.
I want you to tell me when that was and why.
It was right before Thanksgiving because Chris had kept calling and calling and calling, had my children very upset, said he wanted to reconcile, there would be no more physical violence. So I took the kids, we tried to make another start. It was 17 years of a marriage. I tried to make it work again, but it didn't.
So you left Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
That was a mutual agreement between Beth and I.
I didn't ask you a question.
That's fine.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
I always get the last word, sir.
I agree with you.
Good. I did say the last word, didn't I?
That was the last word. That's right.
So you decided to go back to your husband.
Yes.
There wasn't any problem with Mr. Hogan, was there?
No.
None at all?
No.
Everything was just ducky. You moved out of your house with your children and everything else, and you just decided to go back.
I left my home because of physical violence.
But then you decided to go back.
Yes.
And at that time, you were living with Mr. Hogan.
Right.
So then you went back. And when you got back to the house, you found the plaintiff in the house. Is that right?
No.
She wasn't there?
He had already thrown her out.
Really?
Yes.
Well, tell me about that.
I had come back and I asked where the girl was that was staying with him. He
How
said,
did you know that there was a girl staying with him?
Oh, he told me.
No, she made frequent visits.
Just a second. You mean you never saw her there?
I saw her one time out on the front patio.
Miss Dees, you knew that there was someone else living there.
Yes.
Were you happy that there was someone else living there?
Judge Judy, there were many people in and out of the house.
I'm talking about her.
Oh, it didn't bother me.
At all?
No.
So that there was no reason for you to ask her to leave?
Oh, no.
Fine. So that by the time you say you got back with your children,
Right.
she was already gone.
Yes.
And that was right before Thanksgiving.
Right.
Now, there are some things in the house that belong to her.
Right.
And you were aware of that?
Yes.
What things were in the house that belonged to her?
She had some clothing, some personal female items, toiletries, what have you.
What about furniture? Was there any furniture that was in the house that had not been there when you were living there?
No. There was
What
not.
about a dining room set?
There was a dining room set there? Yes, there is.
That's what I asked you.
I don't know if it's hers or...
I didn't ask you that. I said to you, was there any furniture there that was not there when you were living there?
Yes, a dining room set.
Fine. Any other furniture?
No.
Did you ask your husband whose dining room set this was?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He bought it from a storage unit sale.
Is that what you told her?
No, ma'am. It was very clear. Let me back up here a minute. The reason I feel that she came back to the house is when she found out I got the house out of foreclosure.
It hasn't been in foreclosure?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
I did matrimonial work for a very
Yes.
long time. Trust me, I got the drill of what's going on here. Believe me, I do.
Okay.
I'm not going into issues of domestic violence. That's really not
They're-
before me.
They're never.
The issue, whether there wasn't, it's
She
not
knew the
before
furniture.
me. What happened is,
She
your
frequently
wife
visited.
wanted the house back, and she managed to get it. She left, it didn't work out, and she managed to get it. You are living there now, are you not?
Yes, ma'am.
And you got a restraining order against your husband, did you not?
Yes, ma'am.
So he was thrown out of the house, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Hogan is living there, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
All right, so we all got the drill straight. And how did I know? Did I make that up in my head, or am I just a good guesser? Huh? I'm just a real good guesser. That you wanted your home. This was a very good way to get it. Tried a reconciliation for about 2.5 minutes. It didn't work out. You got a restraining order against him. You put him out of the house. You moved the boyfriend in. And now everything is just delightful. Now you got your house.
No.
Say
That's not
nothing.
right. That's not right.
Say nothing.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christina Lillard says her roommate's estranged wife, Beth Dees, either disposed of or destroyed her personal belongings.
Miss Dees,
Yes.
Where is all of her stuff?
The only thing that was in the house when I came was the dining room set and a van in the backyard that had bags of clothing, a suitcase, and some photo albums. Now, that van had not been paid for in 2 years. I called the loan company. They came and repossessed the van. I don't know if her items are still in there or if they've sold them or what.
Well, just a second. What would make you believe that it was her items in the van?
That's the only thing that was at the house that was not mine.
Then you knew those items were hers.
No.
Just a second. Okay. Then you knew those items were hers. Now, the plaintiff says that she's known your husband for a long time. Have you known her for longer than this 6-week period?
All I know of her is that they bailed each other out of jail. That's all I know.
Okay. Did you know where she had lived?
I knew that she was homeless, is all I ever knew.
Did you know enough to contact your husband and ask where she was so that you could get this property to her?
If I could find my husband, I could never find my husband. He was
Well,
not
he was
reachable.
there when you got the restraining order against him, wasn't he?
Yes,
he was
he
there
was.
to serve, wasn't he?
Yes.
When he got thrown out of his house.
By pure luck.
Yes.
Listen, cutie pie, I'm not crazy about you because I don't think that you're
That's
showing me
okay.
sufficient respect. Just stand there
That's okay.
like an inanimate object. You want to start a new life? Why don't you start it in your own house?
I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Can I?
No, sir, you didn't. And I don't care how you go about dividing marital property. You don't do it by using the courts, which is what you did, madam. You used the courts in a way that the courts were not designed. Quiet.
Sorry,
Because, Mr. Davidson, I want to explain something to you. I have a sense that there was sufficient amount of domestic disturbance in the house, caused at least in part by you.
No, ma'am. She
Maybe.
was escorted away by the police every time she came to the house.
Did you ever have a drinking problem,
No,
Mr.
ma'am.
Davidson? Never drink?
No.
Really?
I'm not a drinker.
Oh,
I had a problem with drugs once in my life.
Well, maybe so. Maybe my choice of substances may have been off. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that you're guilt-free. I just don't like it when people utilize the court system. I'm speaking. Don't you see my mouth moving?
Yes.
I don't like when people use the court system, especially restraining orders, for things for which they were not designed in order to secure a financial position or a property position, which is exactly what I believe your wife did. In any event, that has nothing to do with Miss Lillard's property. Your wife had an obligation to ensure that that property was safe. She did not do that. Do you have estimated cost of value, please, as to what was taken from the van and the dining room set? And I'd like to take a
There's
look
a dining
at
room set and an oak buffet hutch, a lighted book that matches it. She knows about that too, along with the TV that was in my room and other things that were in my room, like all my pictures of my kids that she destroyed that I can't replace. She's very vindictive, and she has met me many, many times face to face, even walked in my room without knocking on the door.
Your Honor, if I may speak for a second, please.
Him, I don't know. I've
Sure.
never met.
Great. If you don't know me, why are you suing me?
Now you can't speak at all anymore.
I'm sorry.
You just lost your turn.
Sorry.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All these are excused. You may step out.
Beth is just a vindictive, jealous, insecure woman.
Don't agree with it?
I'd like to meet her in a parking lot somewhere.
The judge is the boss.
If you're going to think about cheating, don't get married.
Ha ha, Beth.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Denny versus Waddell. Step forward, please.
26-year-old student Laquita Denny is suing her boyfriend's estranged wife, 35-year-old housekeeper Zanetta Waddell, for smashing out her car windows. Zanetta claims the only vehicle she vandalized that night was her husband's.
Ms. Denny, it is your claim that the defendant busted out all the windows on your car when she found her husband at your house.
Correct.
She says she busted out the windows of his car. So, why were you there? When did it happen? Why did you bust out the windows? And where's your husband?
He's in jail.
For?
Felonious assault, domestic violence.
Against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that after this incident when you busted out his car windows?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you and your husband living together?
No. We haven't been living together in over 7 years.
So what caused you to go over to the plaintiff's house? Because I assume that you went over to her house. You haven't lived with him. It's not as if you got up one morning and looked and saw he wasn't there.
Right.
So what were you doing over at her house?
Well, actually, I noticed my husband coming off of her street on a Saturday afternoon. I bowl on Saturdays, so I came from bowling about 9 o'clock, 9:15. I went to the bar with my brother and my sister, had a couple of beers. It was about 11:30 when I called Miss Denny's house from my cell phone.
Why?
I seen my husband come off her street. Like I said earlier, I knew he had to have
some type of involvement with her or been over her house in order for him to be coming.
But my question to you is, you haven't been together with your husband for 7 years.
Oh, it's not like we're not seeing each other or being together, because we still do have an involvement.
But you haven't lived together as husband and wife for 7 years. So you must know that he sees other people, you see other people.
Oh, him and Miss Denny has been in the relationship for the 7 years, but it's not been like just him and her. It's been all three of us. You know, it's like he's the center man. He wants me and her to have confrontation.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. As I said, I called her house from my cell phone. They did not answer. I went to her house, his van, her car, both in the driveway, so I know they're both there. I pound on her back door. They don't respond.
Why did you do that?
I wanted to talk to my husband. I wanted to know why he was there if they're not in a relationship anymore and he's no longer involved with her. Why are you at her house?
Go ahead.
Well, I called again from my cell phone 2 other times. They still refused to answer my call. Well, I know that I can get him out of there if I do something to his car. Well, I kicked his car. The alarm went off. They disarmed the alarm. I kicked it again. They done the same thing. Well, it was this little thing that you use to set your fireplace poker things on, sitting by the garbage dump. I went out and I got that, and I bust out his windshield. They still didn't respond. I bust out the passenger door window. Still no response. So I bust out, he has sliding doors on his Astro van. I bust out the big window. Still no response. So as I went to bust out the 4th window, that's when he come running out her back door, grabbed the poker thing from me. We're fighting over the pole. He hits me. I fall now. When I left her place of residence to go to the payphone to call the police, her windows weren't bust out then.
What were you calling the police for? You had just committed a crime.
My husband assaulted me.
You had just committed a crime.
He didn't press charges.
So you vandalize his car.
Mm-hmm.
He comes out and he hits you for vandalizing his car to get you away from the car.
And then he vandalizes my car.
When did he do that?
When I went to the phone, I left my car because in the process of him fighting me and we're tussling over this pole some kind of way, my keys fell out. I couldn't find my car keys to leave my car, so she's like a block away from a restaurant that has a payphone outside. I called the police from the payphone. They arrived within less than 3 minutes.
And he was arrested for domestic violence, and the domestic violence was that he hit you after you vandalized his car.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the first time he had been arrested for domestic violence?
Mm-mm.
I see something in the papers here that the two of you submitted, that there was a protective order that prohibited you from going to her home for a period of time. Is that right?
My protection order had gotten over.
Is that right?
No.
That there was a protective order, not in place at that time, but she had a protective order prohibiting you from coming to her home.
No.
According to you, your answer, there was a restraining order against me regarding Lakita that had ended 4 months before.
It did not come from her, Your Honor. It came from my parole officer.
I don't care who it came from.
But once my parole ended...
Just a minute. Now, you said that that came from your parole officer. What kind of parole?
I was on parole for felonious assault.
Against whom?
Laquita.
Now, what kind of car do you have?
Oldsmobile 86.
Well, I think that you were so angry, madam, you got the wrong car. Or maybe you were so enraged you didn't know what you hit. But you certainly got her car. Maybe his too. Let me see the estimate of the damage, please.
It's the estimate and also the receipt of what I paid for.
When did she assault you?
She assaulted me in July of '97.
Were you incarcerated for that assault?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
3 years.
That's a serious assault. What kind of injury did you have?
I had a cut across my face, numerous cuts on my arms, and my ear was halfway off.
Prior to 2 years of me cutting her, she cut me.
I cut her because she came in my house. She busted out my car windows then, busted out my house windows, and came inside my house, and I cut her. That's why I was never charged.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 5.
How old are they?
18, 16, 13, 11, and 10.
Did they all live with you?
Yes.
So why would you risk going to jail again by going to her house?
I'm not risking going to jail again going to her house.
Sure you were. You went to her house and you vandalized property on her property.
Belonging to my husband.
Listen, he better be some prize for you to put yourself in harm's way with this lady who's missing a few screws.
He
Do
must
you
be.
understand?
You keep coming over there.
No, listen to me. For you, he must be some prize, because I certainly wouldn't tolerate it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount requested, $405 for the windows. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Miss Ross, you and Miss Carter have been having trouble for a very long time. You want to tell me how you know each other?
Okay, it all started with an ex-boyfriend that I used to have. Me and him just got into it too many times, so I told him to go back to his baby mama. That's her sister, Amete Carter, the witness.
And how long ago was that?
It's been an ongoing thing between me and him, but he's now, now in jail. So it's been 2 years me and him haven't been messing around.
All right. You have a problem with his sister?
No, it's my ex-boyfriend's girlfriend's sister.
Ex-boyfriend's girlfriend's sister.
Right.
That's you.
That's me.
In any event, according to what I read here, the two of you have mutual restraining orders against each other because there's evidently been a past history of acting out behavior on the part of both of you. And you, Miss Ross, claim that on a particular date, the defendant harassed you, damaged your car. She says you were harassing her, you damaged her car. There is a claim and a counterclaim. Tell me how long these mutual restraining orders have been in effect.
Since January the 2nd of 2002.
And tell me about this date when you claimed that your car was damaged.
On March the 6th, 2002.
All right, now I'm going to let each of you tell me your version of what happened. Go!
Okay, I was leaving my mother's house because I just got off of work. I was going to take my kids to go get them some tennis shoes, so I was on my way to my grandma's house to let my aunt know that I was coming this weekend to pick up my table. So next thing I know, I observed, this little green car behind me. So I was like, okay, why is she behind me? So then I got out my car and I took her picture.
Why did you do that?
For evidence. The police always told me to make sure I have evidence of her harassing me.
So you keep a camera in your car?
Keep a camera at all times.
So she was behind you, you stopped your car, and you jump out and you go click, 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 and then you get back in your car.
Yes.
Then what happened?
Then I proceeded to go. Then she flew around everybody else to try to get in front of me. So at that time, she finally got in front of me, started slowing down, but I seen her, so I slowed down. I said, because she's not going to catch me that way, saying that I'm harassing her. So she sat at the stop sign, just sitting there. So when I pulled up, she's getting out of her car, snapping pictures, walking towards me, telling all the other cars to go past, go on, because she just...
So then she's taking your picture?
Yes.
Go ahead.
But at that time, she's steadily approaching my car. Well, I have my 2 kids in the car. So talking about, I got you now, and all other kind of little stuff, so I wasn't paying her no attention. So I went ahead, went around her. So when I got to the next block over, where my grandmother stayed, I turned. Next thing I know, I'm observing her coming right behind me. So I got out my car again and took her picture. Next thing I know, I'm still watching her coming past me. She's mumbling something through her window. Then next thing I know, she tried to hit me, so I ended up jumping into my car and making a dent in my door. Then next thing I know, she just literally just turned her car into my front end and then took off. And then after that, that's when she almost hit their car. She got out her car to look at, see what was wrong with her car, and took off. So next thing I know, I'm calling the police. They came, and then they took a report, and then they asked to speak to my witnesses. And then that night...
That's not how anything happened.
Now you. I'll hear you. I'm listening.
I'm going over my sister's house, which is near Mrs. Ross' grandmother's house. I'm out minding my business because it happened on a Wednesday. My sister was supposed to go to surgery and have things done to her the next day. So to comfort both me and my sister in this predicament that we're having, I just wanted some comfort there between her and me. And we just ended up together. A block and a half up, she gets out of her car and take my picture and call me a stupid B. So when the light turned green, I sat up there and I got out my left lane and got in the right lane to make a right to go to my sister's house. So I was not following her. I don't know where she's getting this following and harassment stuff from. Miss Ross follows me up there. She takes the turn. I got out of my car and I took a picture of her. And I told her, are we going to take Kodak pictures of each other all night? I was like, leave me alone.
No, you didn't say that.
I got in my car. There's a 4-way stop sign. So I let the other cars go, thinking that maybe she was going to go where she had to go and mind her business after this little, after the picture taking. She done stopped her car, got out of her car with her car door open and started kicking my car. I stopped my car and I got out of the car and I asked her, why are you kicking my car? Why are you messing with me? She gets scared because I'm about to approach her because I was going to break her neck. Yeah. She gets in her car and she jumps the curb and hit my car. Then when I'm going to my car, I hear, she hit my car. She hit my car. I'm looking back. She's on the telephone calling the police like I did something. So I went up the street to my sister's house and called the police. No, I did not.
You don't speak to each other, speak to me.
So I went to my sister's house and I called the police and the police came out there and made a report.
Okay, now which one of these witnesses doesn't know either one of you?
I don't need to know her.
Okay, so I'll hear you first. Tell me your name.
My name is Chantel Pittman.
Ms. Pittman, you don't know the plaintiff?
No, I don't.
I never saw her before this date in March.
Right, I didn't meet her until that day.
Okay, tell me what you observed that day.
Well, me and Miss Brookins was in Miss Brookins' car, and we were waiting for my daycare van to come to pick up my kids. And we seen the headlights coming, and we looked in the rearview mirror, and we was like, she just hit her car. Did you just see her hit her car?
Well, tell me exactly what you saw.
The black car was here parked. We seen the green car come around and hit the black car on the driver's side. And she pulled up behind Mrs. Brookins' car, got out of her car, left her door open, walked around to her passenger side to check to see if she had anything in her car, got back in, and when she took off, she almost hit Miss Brookins' car on the passenger side.
Would you step up here? Tell me your last name, please.
Doretta Brookins.
Miss Brookins, who was driving that day?
I was.
And you waited around to give information to the police?
Correct.
That was very nice of you.
Thank you.
If I were to ask you the same questions that I just asked the previous witness, would your testimony be the same?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated. Do you have the police reports?
Yes.
Let me see the police report, please.
That's both of ours.
And can I see the damage to your car? And the estimates, please.
Your Honor,
Yes.
can I say something?
Sure.
Ms. Ross is stating that I'm harassing her because of my sister's husband. And I don't see how and why is it every time that something happens, I'm always
Because
in
you
the
the
middle
main
of
one.
it because I don't do anything to her. I'm not the only person that Mrs. Ross also harasses due to a man that she hasn't been with for the last 10 or 15 years.
Judge, she wouldn't
I
know
also
that she
have
wouldn't go to the
Listen,
police
listen
files.
to me. Listen to me, Ms. Carter. It's clear to me that you were responsible for the damage to the bumper on her car. I'm dismissing your counterclaim because I don't believe she hit your car. The question is, are you totally responsible? And the answer is, I do not believe you are totally responsible. I believe that both of you acted badly. However, you started the trouble. You started the trouble by getting out of your car and starting to take her picture and calling her a couple of names. Instead of, you saw the green car behind you, make sure you don't go anywhere near where she's going. But two of you engaged in conduct that was so childlike. You jumped out of your car first, start snapping a picture. Then she starts snapping your picture. Then you snap her picture, then she snaps your picture. And to make matters worse, you have children in your car, acting like a fool. If you really feel as if she's harassing you, drive over to the police station.
It was too far.
Drive directly over to the police station. See if she follows you there. And if she follows you there, she's a fool. And if she doesn't, then you've avoided conflict. What you didn't do was avoid conflict.
But can I show you something else?
Yep.
This is how much she is a troublemaker. I have her little record of her history of how much of assault and battery and her.
I don't have no assault and
Listen
battery.
to me. All may be true, Miss Ross. I mean, I'm looking at your claim now. The damage to your car was only $700. The $1,000 you wanted
For the harassment, because I'm
is for the
tired.
harassment. Just listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me that you saw her car, so you drove directly to the police station in order to avoid any possible conflict in front of your children, and she followed you and she hit your car, I would rule entirely differently. But that's not what happened. You engaged her. You engaged her, and you started the engagement by getting out of your car, taking her picture, and exchanging words with her. That doesn't excuse her conduct, but that's saying to you, you're not really being smart. If you were afraid of her,
Thank you.
you drive over to the police, and she does the same thing. I mean, she's sitting there smiling. She does the same thing. As I said, I'm dismissing the counterclaim. But I'm also dismissing that part of your claim of $1,700 that asked for $1,000 in harassment. And I'm only attributing half of the damage to your car to her. Because as far as I'm concerned, you should have kept on driving.
I did. I was going to my grandmother's house. She should have never turned down my street.
No. You should have kept on driving. You got out of your car, placing your children at risk to take her picture.
Okay, why did she get out of her car?
Listen, life is very short. You'll get lecture 304 now. Life is very, very short. You can either spend it fighting or you can spend it loving. The two of you are never going to love each other. But if you want to devote your energies to this kind of nonsense, I mean, what are you laughing about? How old are you?
I'm not laughing.
How old? Yes, you are.
No,
How
I'm
old
not.
are you?
I'm 25.
25. How old are you?
31.
Well, so you're young. You're not supposed to create friction in your lives. That's just stupid. Do you know what happens when you spend your life in conflict? You end up looking old much too soon. It's over. There's no reason for you to have any contact with each other. End it.
Yes.
Don't be
stop calling my
stupid.
phone.
Put your hand. Do I need you? I don't need you. I don't want you. Don't be stupid. End it. Put a period. No man is worth it. Husband, brother, boyfriend, whatever, especially one that's in jail.
Thank you.
Even if they're not in jail, they're usually not worth it.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
put a period and move on. That's all. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She just need to go on about her way, stop being ignorant and childish and stupid, and just leave me alone.
She's mad because I'm with a man that don't want her, ain't never wanted her, and she just sick with it. She got problems.
She trying to take up her sister's battle, but like I said, if I catch her, I'm gonna get her.
She's 31. She needs to move on.
Move on with her life.
Bye-bye.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Griffiths versus Giles. Step forward, please.
Alan and Tanya Griffiths are suing former friend, 32-year-old bartender Ken Giles, for stealing their honeymoon money. Ken says he didn't do it.
All right, Mr. and Mrs. Griffiths, according to your complaint, the defendant, who had been either a friend or an acquaintance of yours, agreed to be the bartender at your wedding. On the wedding bar, according to you, there were two jars. One contained a jar for tips for the defendant, and the other jar was something called a honeymoon jar, where guests would come, put money, I assume, for your honeymoon.
Yes,
Is that right? And it is your claim that the defendant helped himself to your honeymoon jar.
Yes, ma'am.
To the tune of $1,500. All right, so let's get to this very quickly. Prove it.
Well, here's a list of just the ones that I could get a hold of, what they had put in there, their phone numbers, and my witness here also seen him putting money in places where not the jar.
You never saw anything.
Not as far as him taking anything personally.
Okay, good. Step up. Name.
Trisha Good.
All right, Miss Good. Tell me what you observed with regard to this.
I saw
can.
Ken put money under the can, and then later on I seen him putting money in his pockets. Earlier before...
No, let's go slowly. You saw him put money
Underneath
the
the
can. He's standing behind the bar. Where did he get the money from?
The people at the wedding.
You mean people would hand him money?
They all knew that it was...
Don't tell me what anybody else knew. I'm asking you for your observations.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
You saw guests hand him money.
Yes.
And you saw him place the money under the can.
Yes.
How many times did you see that?
Once.
What else did you see?
Earlier before that, he didn't have gas money, and then later on he had money in his pockets.
There was also a tip jar, was there not?
Yes, there was.
And people gave him tips?
I don't know.
But they might have.
They could have.
And that could have been the money that he used for gas.
Could have been.
Right. So what you actually saw was somebody hand him money. Did you see how much money they handed him?
No.
You saw a bill, more than one bill?
I didn't see. I just seen green.
You just saw green, so you don't know if it was $1 or $10.
Yeah. But his tip jar was at the front of the bar. They wouldn't have handed him the tips. They would have put their own tips in there. The donation for the honeymoon was behind the bar.
So that nobody could reach that jar?
Yes.
Nobody?
Except for Ken or Susan.
Really? Okay. Now, let's hear.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, as far as the honeymoon jar, it wasn't a donation. What they were doing was charging $2 for mixed drinks.
No, you were
and,
charging for mixed drinks. You were selling them.
Yeah, you were. They were charging $2 for mixed drinks. So we got there, and there was no money whatsoever to bartend with. I had to ask my girlfriend here to borrow some money so we could make change for people. Okay,
That's
and
a lie.
So when we got there, she gave me 10 ones, and I put it in the jar there or whatever.
What jar?
The actual bar jar. Okay, we're talking about two different jars.
We're talking about two different. One was for your tips. I assume
Yes.
that had a sign on it that said tips.
Yes, ma'am.
And the other one was a can, a coffee can.
Yes, ma'am.
Did people hand you money and say to you, put that money in that can?
No, ma'am. The only reason they ever handed me money was either for a tip or because they had bought a drink.
Okay. Did you ever take any money out of the can?
Yes, I did. I took back the $10 that Susan had given to us.
Sit down. Go ahead.
Also, I'd gone to the store twice, which I brought back receipts for Mr. Griffith. And during the course of the evening, I also informed Mr. Griffith that Tricia had been going back to behind the bar and just totally cleaning it out. She'd done that 2 or 3 times.
Well, just a second. Mr. Griffiths, Mrs. Griffiths, it's very possible that he did. I don't know. And you can't prove it. You may
Well,
assume.
people seen him.
Don't tell me what other people... I heard what she saw. She saw him take green that someone handed him and put it under the coffee can. That's what she testified to. Now, I don't know whether that money that was handed to him was intended to be a tip, and it's very possible that he helped himself to a couple of bucks out of this can. I don't know, but more importantly, this is a court, and you can't prove it. Do you understand?
Well, I could prove how much was supposed to be in there, and I could
No,
prove
you
how
can't.
much he tried to hand me.
No, you can't, sir. All you can do is tell me what the people later, after the wedding, told you.
No, a couple of them told me during the wedding. They even showed me the money they put in there before they went over there.
And when he tipped his girlfriend for helping him out that night, he tipped her with a $20 bill. Who's going to come up to the bar and order a drink and tip him $20?
I don't know.
Neither do I.
I don't know. Your problem is you cannot prove it. You cannot establish what he took.
Well, see,
if he took anything, because you have no proof.
as far as him saying that she emptied it.
Get over it. You cannot prove it.
But see, when she took the money from it, she told me that she was going to empty it because she knew that something was going on.
We knew what was going on the whole time, but we weren't going to sit there and babysit because...
And what she was supposed to do was, if you knew what was going on all the time, then what
It
you
wasn't-
do is
it
you
was-
take...
that was like the last 2 hours.
I'm speaking. You see my mouth moving?
Mm-hmm.
If you knew what was going on all the time, then you say, I'm taking this can away.
We didn't know all the time. It wasn't
Good.
until like the last
Well, I don't
hour.
know now. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Who's speaking?
I am.
What is your last name, sir?
Williams.
Mr. Williams, according to your complaint, you loaned this defendant, actually both of them, but it was for his use, $600 because he was facing a period of 15 days in jail,
Yes, we did.
and he never paid you back the money.
That's right.
According to you, this defendant, Gilkerson,
Yes.
was also party to that loan.
Yes.
Because it was she who you knew.
That's right.
Okay. How do you know each other?
Me and her mother were best friends since we were 4 years old.
So she's the child of a good friend of yours?
Correct.
Who got the call about this money?
Actually, me and Sandra had discussed it, loaning money, and then...
Well, tell me about the discussion. Where did it take place? When did it take place?
Go ahead.
Debbie approached me. The Sandra approached her, wanted to borrow $600.
No. I want to hear from her when Sandra approached you.
Okay, Sandra come to me in January and asked me if she could borrow some money to help to get Brian out of some trouble he was in.
Did she tell you what kind of trouble?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that he just had tickets and fines and that needed the money so he didn't go to jail, and I didn't want him to go to jail.
You didn't want him, or she didn't want him to go?
She didn't want him to,
go to-
but I didn't want him for her.
So it was just fines?
Correct.
How much money did she say he needed?
He needed $600.
What did you tell her?
I told her that I had to talk to Tom and that we would get back with her. And then we discussed it, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't Sandra that had to pay all the money back. I wanted Brian to be a part of it because I didn't want Sandra liable for him.
Did you ever speak to him?
I did not speak to Brian, no. Tom did.
Okay. Now it's your game.
Debbie come and told me that Sandra wanted to borrow this money, but she had reservations about Brian, and she wanted me to talk to Brian because she didn't want Sandra at that point to get stuck with this whole thing. So I went and I talked to Brian one-on-one.
You went to his house?
Yes, we were at his house where he lives with Sandra, her house. We were on his porch, and I told him, you guys want to borrow this money, and you had Sandra come ask for it. It's for you. It's your debt also. I don't care if you guys break up. I don't care if you move away. I don't care what happens. It's your debt too.
And what did he say?
He said he was cool with that, and he just needed to pay these fines.
Is that what he
because-
said? He's cool with that?
No, I said I understood.
Yes.
Oh, good. You cool with that? And you said you understood that.
Yeah, I agreed.
You know what that's like? Did you ever, do a lineup where you have the victim looking at the group of people, and the detective says, do you recognize anybody as the person who robbed you? And the robber raises his hand, it was me. I'm glad we've resolved that. You understood this was your debt, all right? Who did you give the $600 to?
Both of them at the same time.
A check or cash?
Cash.
Cash.
Okay. Now you don't have to say anything else for a while. Go.
It wasn't $600. I did have some traffic fines that were going to be due. I asked Sandra because she was my girlfriend. I didn't have a job at the time. I had just lost it. It wasn't, I didn't know Sandra was...
Do you see how quiet he was? Now you're not allowed to speak.
All right.
Okay, good.
I didn't know Sandra was going to ask these guys, but I had asked her if there was anything she could do to help me. It was only $240 that they gave us because my fines were only $300. That's all they equaled up to. But all she was able to give us was $240. We made one payment. It was not said to be paid at the beginning of the month. It was just every month they wanted $30. And yes, that was understood. She was on welfare at the time, and that's how she was going to help me pay them back. Until I found a job, she was going to give them $30 a month until it was paid off, or I found a job and was able to contribute
So
to
you
the
mean
loan.
I, as a taxpayer, who pays
No.
tax... Listen to me carefully, sir.
Yes.
Let me make this easier for you so that I can keep him interested. Bird, who is a taxpayer, who works and pays his taxes, part of which go to support people who cannot or will not support themselves through welfare. Bird was going to pay for your fines.
That's not the way it...
Well, that's what it is. Do you
like
understand that? Do you understand that, Officer Bird?
It works that way.
She's getting welfare because you have children, I assume.
I have a son.
You have a child. Who's the father of that child? Him?
No.
Somebody else. So because you are a single parent and have a child, you get welfare. You were going to take $30 from your small welfare benefits and pay back his debt.
It was mine also, ma'am.
I don't care whose debt it was. How can you agree to pay back a debt for somebody when all you get is mere existence money for you and your child? How could you afford $30 a month? They must pay you an awful lot for welfare.
No, they don't.
But it was able to be afforded until I was able to find a job, and then she wouldn't have been paying it no more because it was my fines to be paid.
Just a second. Now, I don't want you to say anything else. Miss Gilkerson, when did Mr. Grutel first tell you that he needed money to pay these fines?
Sometime in the beginning of January.
Where were you when he told you?
At my house.
And who lives at your house?
Me and my son.
Who else?
We were staying up the street at a friend's house.
At a friend's house?
Yes.
Which friend?
My friend Heather.
And where was he staying?
He was staying at his mother's.
Sure he was.
That's not,
Sure.
all of that's a lie.
Of course. Sure he was staying at his
I was staying at my mother's house. Like I said, it wasn't
Now,
going to be
Are
rehearsed.
you telling me that you never stayed with Miss Gilkerson?
Yeah, I'm not going to say...
He stayed the night.
Yes, ma'am. I have spent the night, but I didn't live there.
Of course you have. And you just pick the nights that you stay there, and at the other times you stay with your mom, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what kind of fines were these? What were they for,
Just
sir?
traffic. When I
Traffic.
first got my license, you know, I didn't have my insurance and everything, so that made it a bunch more problems for me.
Well, what does that mean, you didn't have your insurance?
I wasn't responsible.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Thomas Williams and his girlfriend Debbie Kirby say former friends Brian Grutel and girlfriend Sandra Gilkerson owe for a loan to keep Brian out of jail.
Were all the fines for not having insurance?
No.
What were they for?
Driving without a license as well.
Okay, so not only didn't you have insurance, but you didn't have a license.
Yes, ma'am.
How many tickets did you have in total?
Probably 3.
So this is my question to you. Judge gave you so much time to get the money together.
And to produce a valid driver's license.
When was that?
I'll say January 15th. I'm not for sure at this time.
Okay. Now, when you paid the fines, you got a receipt.
Yes, I didn't bring it. I'm sorry.
Now, I mean, did you think that I was stupid?
No, ma'am.
You pay the fines, and then you get a receipt
Right.
that you bring back to the court, and then the matter is dismissed, right?
Yes.
Where's the receipt?
I was only able to pay one fine because they didn't give me enough money to pay all of it.
That's fine. Where's the
I didn't
receipt for
bring
the
it.
one
I couldn't
fine?
find it. It was a
Now,
last
are you
minute.
still living in the same location
Yes.
that you were living before?
Yes.
And is the court in the same city where you live?
Yes.
Yes. So what you do is you take a ride down or walk
Oh, I can get
down.
a copy.
No, you do that before you come to court.
I'm sorry.
Me too. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I love Sandra like she was my daughter, and this is just killing me.
I couldn't say the right words for her to understand my side of the story.
They're all living on welfare, got it taken, they're all doing drugs.
I got papers proving they're both liars.
They bought a quarter pound of weed and tried to flip it over and messed it up just like they do everything else.
The reason he's saying that is because he stole a quarter pound of weed from my sister's ex-boyfriend and got caught and told everybody charge it to the game.
They smoked it instead of sold it.
He lives off her disability and welfare, and they're a bunch of frauds.
He was fired from his job because he was buying alcohol for minors at McDonald's where he was working at.
He lied.
It's crazy. You know, we're just glad we got our money.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Hamilton versus Cleveland, step forward, please.
22-year-old child care provider Hillary Hamilton is suing her ex-boyfriend, 19-year-old construction worker Cameron Kleeman for an unpaid truck loan and for unpaid rent. Cameron says he owes Hillary nothing.
Ms. Hamilton, you claim a loan to Mr. Kleeman.
Yes, ma'am.
In the amount of $1,900.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What was your relationship to him?
I was his girlfriend.
What did you loan him the money for?
I loaned him the money for a truck.
Tell me about how it came to be that he needed money for a truck and he asked you for a loan.
He didn't have a job, and he asked me.
What did he say?
He asked me if he could have some money to buy a truck so that he can get a job.
Were you living together at the time?
We were getting ready to live together. I'm pregnant with his child.
Where did you get the money from?
My income tax.
Your income tax refund?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you give him the money?
I wrote a check out to the Ford company where we got the truck, and
how much was the check for?
$1,500.
Okay. And you acknowledge that she gave you $1,500. Is that right, sir, towards
Yes,
the down
ma'am.
payment of the truck?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Okay. Now, you tell me your version, sir, of how and why you got this $1,500.
The conversation between me and her of
Yes.
it being a loan never arose. She never said it was a loan. She, you know,
Well, what'd
she
you think
just-
it was?
Well, I mean, we were together at the time and everything else, you know. I mean, she put the money down for our apartment to move in together. She put the $1,500 down for the loan on the truck. She co-signed for me because I didn't have good enough credit to be able to facilitate a loan. And so, I mean, it never became a loan until she moved out of the apartment we were living in, and she came to me and asked me what I was going to do about owing her the money. And my reply to her was, I don't owe you any money. I was working. I was paying all my bills and stuff that I had incurred myself.
But you couldn't work anymore if you didn't have a truck that was working.
Well, that's true. My truck
Just
was
a
in the
second,
process.
so you wouldn't have been able to work.
True.
Mr. Kleeman, I want you to put aside the issue of a contract with her for a moment. There came a time when you no longer were living together. You moved into an apartment, which is the other part of your claim, that you laid out his half of the rent, $400.
Yes, ma'am.
What caused you to separate?
He was dating another girl while I was living there with him.
That's not true.
Just a second. And how long had you actually lived together in this apartment?
11 days.
Who was supposed to make payments on the truck?
She provided the $1,500 down. I was supposed to I had a promissory note signed to pay $500 within 2 weeks of the time of the loan was signed and everything. And I'd talked to Victor, the guy at Marshall Mize Ford there in Chattanooga, and told him that I wasn't going to be able to make it because I had to go with my father out of town.
So what happened?
I gave them $250 in a money order, and then I paid them, it was $278 with everything, taxes and all.
Okay, so you had the truck for about 2 weeks before
Yes,
you and the plaintiff separated.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened to the truck?
About a week and a half after she had moved out, that one of my friends had wrecked the truck.
What was one of your friends doing driving the truck?
And taking one of my other friends to work because I was in no shape to drive.
Why?
I had pneumonia. I couldn't even get out of the bed.
Did you have insurance on this truck?
I had liability, and that was it.
So somebody wrecked the truck.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, who's responsible for all the payments on the truck?
I was, me and Miss Hamilton.
Did you pay for it?
Yes, ma'am. I made every payment up until the week it got repossessed.
What do you mean it got repossessed? I thought it was wrecked.
It was wrecked, yes, ma'am.
And was it still drivable?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying to me, sir, is by the time they repossessed the truck, it had already been damaged by a buddy of yours, and the total purchase price of the truck was what?
I believe it was $9,000.
You owe to the credit company a whole bunch of money.
No, ma'am. Supposedly, Miss Hamilton here, from what she's told my mother, she's found somebody to purchase the vehicle. They're going to get it fixed and everything else, and they've taken over the loan on the vehicle.
Is that right?
The truck's still at Marshall Mize Ford. It's still sitting there. But I do have the paperwork on the truck where nothing's been paid on it except for what I've paid.
How much have you paid?
$1,500.
Only the $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't make any monthly payments on
Yes,
it?
ma'am. I made the $500 promissory
I'm not talking
note.
about the $500. That was the
No.
down payment. When did your friend have an accident in the truck?
Okay, she moved out, I believe that was Friday. It happened the following Sunday.
Okay. And weren't you supposed to make a payment in March?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Did you make a payment in March?
I didn't make the first weekly payment. It was set up on a weekly plan. I didn't.
Why didn't you make the payment?
Because I had totally forgotten about it because I had made the $250 payment, and then I turned around and made another $278 payment, and I'd totally forgotten about it. Well, the guy at Marshall Mize
All right, so
called.
let's figure out what you did. let me tell you all the problems that you had. First of all, you're supposed to come up with the other money after she put down the money, and you had to go out of town with your father.
Right.
Then you let somebody else drive the truck who had an accident.
Yeah.
Then you didn't make the next payment that you were supposed to make on the truck in March because you totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
You're a pretty irresponsible person.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is I forgot about the weekly payment. It was set up on a weekly payment plan.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot. And the man from Marshall Mize called me.
Don't tell me the man from Marshall Mize for them. Not interested. You owe her $1,500. Now, let's hear about this rent business, Miss Hamilton.
I have a lease saying what I paid on the apartment, which was $614 plus $10 deposit for the keys. And he has never taken me off the lease when he lived there. I moved out before the lease even started.
Yeah, so you signed the lease. What do you
but
want?
I wasn't living there.
I don't care. You signed the lease. You're supposed to use your brain and think. How long did you live in that apartment, Mr. Kleeman?
I lived in there until the very end of February.
How much rent did you pay?
I paid $400.
Who did you pay to?
Bender Realty, because I had to have the rent for the March, be able to move out, and they were going to keep the $300 security deposit.
Well, was that her $300 security deposit?
That's out of the money that she put down off the...
Did you pay any rent for March?
No, I didn't live there.
Well, I know, neither did he. He says he paid rent for March.
That's not what they've told me.
I don't believe him either. Did you pay any rent for February, sir?
No, ma'am, I didn't. February was included in the $614.50.
Okay, did you pay any part of that?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Why not?
Because she had said that she would be more than willing to put up the money so that we can move out, so that she can move out. Because she was wanting to move out from her parents' house. I was not in a situation to really argue or anything.
I thought you were working, sir. You kept telling
Yes,
me I was
ma'am, I was
working.
working.
What kind of work were you doing? You didn't have money for a
Construction work.
car. You didn't have money for rent. You didn't have money for security.
I was working
What kind of work were you
construction.
doing?
Working construction.
Well, what were you doing with the money?
I only got paid every 2 weeks, and there was
What
bills
were you
and
doing
stuff.
with the money that
Paying
you were
other-
earning from construction?
Paying other bills and stuff that I had.
What are the
acquired.
bills?
I had a truck payment and insurance on my '95 Dodge Dakota. I have personal debts and stuff to my parents.
Grow up. I mean, is she a person who's independently wealthy?
No, ma'am.
She got a tax return. Let me explain something to you. You're supposed to be the hunter. You're supposed to provide the shelter, gather the food.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not supposed to be the schnurrer. Do you know what a schnurrer is?
No, ma'am, I don't.
I know you don't. A schnurrer is the Yiddish word for taker. Somebody your size isn't supposed to be a taker. They're supposed to be responsible. Responsible for their own transportation, responsible for their own housing. She wasn't even asking you to take care of her. She was just asking you to take care of yourself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,807. That's all.
Ladies, have seats.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
this is your mom?
Yes.
How old are you, sir?
24.
I see here that you have children. How many children do you have?
4.
They all live with you?
Yes.
You hesitated for a minute. What does that mean?
Nothing. Just
Do your children live with you?
all 4
Or
of
do
them.
you
yeah.
live with your children?
Mm-hmm. Live with my children. All
Huh?
4. And my wife.
Because that has something to do with this. Has your mother been helpful to you in the past?
Sort of, kind of.
What does that mean, sort of, kind of?
Well, you know, when I asked her to help me do things, when I needed it, she was there.
Did your mother work?
Not the present time, no.
Did she work when you were growing up?
Yes, she did.
This case has to do with the fact, Mrs. Ellis, that you say that your son came to you recently and
Yes.
said that he was having some difficulty with a car and that he needed some money. Is that right?
Yes.
What kind of difficulty was he having with his car?
It was repossessed again.
And how much money did he need?
$4,123.76.
And I gather from your complaint that you weren't anxious to give him that money immediately. Is that right?
That's true.
Why is that?
Because, like he said, I've helped him in the past. I'm always there for him. And the money that I would help him with, I would give it to him from my savings. It was my money. But this $4,000 that we're speaking of, that came from a credit card. That's borrowing from Paul to loan to Peter, and you have to pay that money back.
Did he come to you asking you for this money?
Yes, he did.
And what did you initially tell him?
I told him no. I told him I think I've done enough.
What did he say?
He begged me and sobbed and asked me to give him another chance, and I'll prove it to you, Mom. Just, you know, if you loaned it to me this last time, I promise you, I'm going to pay you this money back. He cried and everything, but I told him no. And when I told him no, I was so happy, I was so proud of myself that I said no. I was like, yes, I actually turned this guy down, you know. So he left, and he went to my mom's house, and he cried to her. And I guess she's never seen him cry. So she called me and said, can you just give him one more chance? I think he's going to own up to this. I think he's going to really pay you this money back.
What kind of car was it that was repossessed?
97 Dodge Stratus.
So you ultimately gave in, and you gave him $4,123. What was the arrangement as far as repaying you?
I loaned him the $4,123.76. He says gave. I just want to correct you because you said gave. I'm sorry, but you said gave, and that's what he keeps saying gave. It wasn't gave.
Go ahead.
Okay. I loaned him the money August the 17th, and he was supposed to give me $500 every 2 weeks to be paid in full by December the 10th, and any accrued interest that was left over, he would give me that with the next pay, which was December the 24th. And I don't want you to think that I'm kind of like, well, why would you want all this money for this guy? You know, you got these kids. He has a good job, but he was getting a second job that my husband was getting for him, and he promised me that was the money he's going to pay me from. And after I loaned him the money, no second job.
But he did make some payments to you.
Yeah.
Not exactly on time, but $200 or $500 in August and October, and then he gave you a payment in December of $250.
Yes.
So he repaid you a total of $1,250.
Yes.
And then what happened, Mrs. Ellis?
The date he gave me, $250, was the date that the loan was supposed to be paid off, which was December the 10th. He gave my sister the $250 and told her to tell me he would give me the rest of the money with his income tax. He got his income tax and no money.
Did you call him?
Yeah, but I was harassing him when I called him.
Well, what were you saying to him?
I need a payment. I need to pay this credit card. And he would tell me, you know, I got kids over here I got to feed, and would give me the rundown on the things that's going on in his life, but never mind what's going on in my life.
And then there came a point when he told you that you couldn't see your grandchildren?
Yeah. Every time he gets mad at me about something, he holds those kids hostage. Every time. Every time he gets mad at me about something, I cannot see those grandkids.
How many grandchildren do you have?
3 from him. I have 5 total, but I have 3 by him.
I thought he said he had 4 children.
He has a stepchild.
And did you see your grandchildren regularly before all this happened? Have you seen them since?
Whenever he wasn't mad at me.
Have you seen them recently?
No, I haven't seen. The last time I saw the kids were in January.
All right, Mr. Ellis, now I'll hear from you, sir.
All right. Oh, well, I needed the money because, you know, I had this, like back in 1999, she bought me a car. It was a piece of crap, broke down on me. And then, you know, I saved up some money. I said, look, I need help to get another car. So I asked her, I said, could you help me out get another car? She was like, no, 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 no. So I went and got the car on my own. Then, you know, I got in these financial situations, these bonds.
You didn't get the car on your own.
Shh, Mrs. Ellis.
He didn't get the car on his own.
Hey.
Just a minute. Just a minute. I'll get back to you.
So I went and got the car on my own, and then, you know, and then I was like, I found going to these financial situations. And then I came back to it when my car got repossessed. I said, I need you to help me get my car to repossession. You know, I begged and I pleaded. Yeah, I cried too. Because it hurt me. You know, I was real hurt.
What were you hurt about? It's a car.
No, I was hurt because, you know, this is my mom's. I'm like, you know, she should have been there for me faster. But, you know, nevertheless, she was there in the long run, and I got my car out. She say she, well, supposedly loaned me the money, but, you know, she gave it to me because she rightfully, you know, she owed me it, buying me that junk car.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Chrysynthia Ellis says her son James Ellis owes for an unpaid loan. James says he's got 4 kids to support.
Go ahead.
And then, you know, I gave her, I think, $500, $250, you know, to help her out, you know.
What do you mean to help her out? Help her out.
I mean to help her out because she gave me the money. You know, I'm just helping out. I'm saying, look, you know, you ain't working, and here's some money to help you out. And then, you know, I told her about the income tax thing. You know, when that came around, you know, situations come up. I got 4 kids, got a wife, got responsibilities. You know, hey.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Ellis. So you have 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
How old are your 3 children?
3, 2, and soon to be 1.
Now, Mr. Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make enough money to have 3 children?
I make enough to make ends meet, yeah.
When do you think it comes time for your mother to be able to put away for your mother and not to have to worry about a grown adult son who's old enough to be married, old enough to have a job, old enough to make 3 babies? When do you think that time comes?
I don't know. I'd ask her.
Well, I'm telling you, there comes a time when children are supposed to say about their parents, listen, they've brought me to a certain point, right? My mother's not a rich lady. She should be able to put some money away so that when it comes time that she can no longer work or she needs money for her old age and her retirement, she has some money. She's got to stop bailing me out. You don't buy a car that you can't afford. If you have a wife, let your wife get a job instead of having another baby. You get a second job. If your wife can't get a job because she has 3 young children,
Well,
because
she's
you have
in
3
school
young
right
babies,
now.
what?
She's in school right now, you know?
Well,
For
that's,
the opposite
listen, Mr.
situation.
Ellis, that's fine. All of that is not your mother's responsibility. All of that is your responsibility.
Well,
and the fact that your mother, let us assume that your mother bought you a car in 1999. 1999 wasn't so long ago. According to you, you were a father in 1999. All right, so you were a big grown-up guy. So she bought you a car in 1999, and it turned out to be a lemon. So you think that she owed you? She doesn't owe you anything. She doesn't owe you anything. She owed you to bring you along a certain point in your life, and after that, whatever she gives you is really a gift out of the goodness of her heart. But this was clearly a loan. It was a loan because you paid her back some.
that's because I was just being, looking
No,
out.
no, 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 no.
I was looking out, being a nice guy.
No, when did you ever do that before, Mr. Ellis? I want to know when you ever did it before. When did you ever just gratuitously say to your mother, listen, here's $2,000, Mom. I want you to put it in your 401k.
Well, you know.
Well, you know, you don't because
Can't
you don't
think
have
that.
anything extra.
Think that.
With 4 children and a wife who doesn't work and goes to school, you don't have anything extra. So this money that you gave her was not an extra money that you had. It was money that you owed her. Then she started to bug you about it because she's getting the bills every month and the interest is going up, 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 and it's on her credit card. And then you had the gall to say to her, you won't see your grandchildren. What kind of business is that?
Well,
Why do you
it
punish
seemed like it wasn't good business at the time.
Why do you bring your children into it? What kind of a father brings their children into a dispute like that?
And I'm just saying, she get mad at me. I say, hey, can't see the kids.
Well, but I'm asking you, Mr. Ellis, does that sound like a mature thing to you?
Wow.
Does that sound like a grown-up thing to you?
Well,
You know, your
can't
children
think back
enjoy
at
their
that.
Hey, quiet, I'm speaking. You know, your wife may find you amusing, I don't.
Mm.
Your children enjoy seeing their grandmother. Why would you, as a good father, want to punish your children?
Because she's punishing me by harassing me about the money.
So, you're prepared to punish your little children because you don't like the way your mother is treating you. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're saying to me?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,873. Grow up, especially before you have any more babies.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was given, and she want to say it was a loan. You know, it's just like a big conspiracy against me.
You have to crawl before you walk. He didn't want to crawl, he didn't want to walk, he wanted to fly, but I got mine in the end.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Akers, Buttry versus Hill. Step forward, please.
24-year-old student Christine Akers and her fiancé James Buttry are suing 42-year-old photographer Greg Hill for a refund of the deposit on their wedding photos. Christine and James say Greg botched the delivery of their engagement pictures and they don't trust him.
All right, who's going to do the talking?
Both of us.
No, I have a feeling you are.
Okay.
You folks are engaged and planning to get married next month.
Yes, Your Honor.
According to your complaint, you hired the defendant to photograph your wedding. And he took some engagement pictures and promised them to you in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks turned into a couple of months.
Yes.
Didn't get the pictures. And you don't want them anymore. You want your deposit back?
Yes.
And some other damages, which you're not going to get. Forget the aggravation. You didn't have the aggravation because you didn't have him take your wedding pictures yet. When did you hire him?
We hired him on September 17th.
Did you sign a contract?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the contract?
No, I do not.
No, Your Honor. We never received one.
But you signed it?
Yes, Your Honor.
That you got through the mail?
I got it the day that we took the engagement session pictures. So when I saw him, I signed it, handed it to him, and he replied that he would get me a new one in the mail.
And he did not send one back?
He did not, no.
And how much a deposit did he take from you?
We wrote a check for $614.44, which we were told was 1/3 of the total amount of our photography.
For the entire wedding?
For the entire wedding.
Okay. So on September 17th, You hired him and took the engagement pictures?
No, we took the engagement pictures on October 6th.
When did he say you would get those proofs back?
We would get the proofs back.
When did he say you would get the proofs
2
back?
weeks.
Okay. What happened after 2 weeks? Then you get into the third week in October. What happened?
After about the 4th week, we tried to contact him, and we contacted him for the next 7 weeks. Reached answering machine. He would return at a house when we asked to return to work and that type of thing.
What did you say on the machine?
We just want to know where our pictures were, and you said you would get them to us in 2 weeks. It's now been however many weeks, and then give me a call, please. I'm at home. I'll be here for X amount after this time.
When did he finally get in touch with you?
Around the week of November 12th.
And what did he say?
Well, actually, we spoke to Mrs. Hill. She said she would try to get the pictures out by Thanksgiving because we were leaving to go see family. We wanted the pictures before then.
And did she get them to you by Thanksgiving?
No.
When did he finally get the pictures to you?
We finally got the pictures hand-delivered to Jimmy's work.
On what date?
November the 27th, Your Honor. I had tried to reach him prior to Thanksgiving, left messages requesting that he did not put the pictures in the mail, that we would come to his house and pick them up before we left to go out of town. Left numerous numbers for him to reach me. When I got home that day, there was a message on my machine saying that he was going to put them in the mail that evening and we would receive them before the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. I immediately called and asked him to not do that. We would come get them.
So he came and actually brought them to you?
The Monday after Thanksgiving.
Monday after Thanksgiving?
Yes, Your Honor. I called the Wednesday we were about to leave, the day he told us we would have the pictures by. I left a message saying that, Your Honor, we are leaving to go out of town. We wanted to get our pictures by today. This is why we asked you not to mail them. Could we, trying to reach him to maybe come by and pick them up on our way out of town.
Okay, Mr. Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
According to your answer, sir, you were going through a little internal stuff. You were downsizing your business. What does that mean, downsizing your business?
That means that I moved from a commercial location back into my home.
Well, what excuse do you have, sir, for not getting the pictures to them on time?
It was the studio's fault that we didn't get the photos to them on time. It was during this time when we were moving everything back from the commercial location to the house. It was miscommunication between the people in my office and myself. Their phone calls were returned on more than one occasion.
Yeah, but they didn't get their pictures.
They did eventually.
Mr. Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any question as to why they have a lack of confidence in you to do their wedding?
I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question, Judge.
How long have you been in the business, Mr. Hill?
20 years. And occasionally problems occur.
It's not occasionally. I want to tell you something. We've done 5 weddings. 5.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems it's endemic in the photography business. You're supposed to get your pictures back, your proofs back in 6 weeks from the wedding. A year later, people are still waiting for their proofs. But by that time, they have no choice because you're the only game in town. You're the one who took the pictures. So all these young couples wait. They wait for 2 months, 3 months, and 4 months, and 5 months, and 6 months, and they don't get them back. And you guys have them over a barrel. But here, these people had a preview. You were supposed to get their pictures back to them in 2 weeks, and it took 8 weeks to get proofs, engagement proofs. These are not whole wedding pictures, but just engagement proofs. Why should they continue with your services and buy into aggravation? Why?
Because it was an unusual circumstance.
That's not their fault. They wanted their pictures. Mr. Hill, I can understand you downsizing your business, but I can't understand why downsizing your business prevents you from getting their pictures to them in 3 weeks.
I have a staff that I was dependent on to do certain things also. When you photograph a volume of weddings and portraits and children, you have to leave some things up to other people, although it is ultimately my responsibility.
Right.
And once I found out, see, I was told that they were getting some of their calls returned. I didn't realize it was just some at the time.
What difference does it make if they got calls? They didn't get their pictures. So if you were told that they were getting some of their calls returned, Mr. Hill, then you knew that there was a problem that they hadn't gotten their pictures. So why didn't you at that point say, I'm going to get them their pictures immediately? Mr. Hill, these people told you that they wanted the pictures, the few pictures that you had taken, so that they could take them home for Thanksgiving. They didn't get them until after Thanksgiving. I find that you breached your agreement with them, and you should have under the circumstances, said to them, I don't want any bad feeling. It was my fault, ultimately, whether it was my employee's fault or my fault. I don't want you to be unhappy. I do a lot of weddings. I do a lot of children. I do a lot of showers. I'll eat that day if I can't rebook it. But you only hopefully get married one time, and I want you to be happy. So you have to return their money to them, sir. $614.44. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are free on the calendar in the matter of Carrillo versus Sanchez. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Carrillo, the defendant is your mother.
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 18.
The big ticket item on your complaint is a car.
Correct.
And you say when you were 17, you purchased a car. Because you were 17, the car couldn't be in your name. It was in your mother's name. But you had taken out $5,000 from your bank account and put that down as a down payment.
Correct.
You left home, your mother kept the car, and you want your $5,000 back.
Correct.
That's the big ticket item. And then you say that there were some items of personal property that belonged to you in the house, some rifles, some rifle holders that your mother refuses to give you. And you have a counterclaim, Ms. Sanchez, against your son, because you said when he left, he took a computer that was supposed to be left there for you and his sisters.
For his sisters, for school.
So let's deal with the car first. That's the big ticket item.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, the $5,000 that's with the down payment. I have the court order that was for the money that was in the account, which was supposed to have gone to me when I turned 18. And would you like to see that?
Yes.
Altogether,
Just a minute. $7,500, at least, of the money came as a result of what, an accident?
Uh-huh.
And he was the victim of this accident. What kind of car accident?
I sued for medical bills and
whatever.
paid in separate, yeah.
This is an infant's compromise, which means that this $7,500 is his money.
And it was modified when he was 10.
Show me.
I didn't be able to get that.
Then that's all I have.
Yeah, he took all the papers, a lot of court papers.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a briefcase full of documents, which include bank statements, proof that I had paid her money, and she had taken that out of the storage as well.
All right, now.
Paid me money?
Don't argue with each other, please. It's very unfortunate when a child has to be involved with a parent in a lawsuit. Where is this car now?
I have it.
How much was the total purchase price of the car?
Close to $7,000 after we financed it.
Okay. Who's been paying the notes on the car?
I have.
I had paid it until I had moved out.
How many months did you pay?
I had paid it from January until May.
So since May of this year, you've been making the payments?
And the insurance on the car.
Have you been driving the car?
Yes.
Okay, well,
because he no longer wanted the car.
Well, the car has to go back to him. The car has to go back to him. You have the title to the car?
No, it's still financed, and the car, he didn't want the car anymore. He asked me to take over the payments. He also
either the car goes back to him, so that if he wants to, he can sell it and get his $5,000 back, as long as the note is then put in your name. Do you understand?
Correct.
I told him to go take the rest of the money back out of the bank and pay it off if he wanted it, because I found a letter saying that he was drinking. And instead of paying it off, he turned around and bought another car, because he didn't want the car. He told me that I could have it. And then from the sales from my car that I sold was going to go to him.
Is that what he told you?
Yes.
And you say that's not what?
No, I had mentioned in March that I had wanted to put the car in my name. She said no.
You
because
never did that.
She said no because we had to refinance it, and she didn't want to go through that. Then I told her if she wanted that car, she would pay me like $4,000, and then she could have the car and take over the payment.
You're not getting any money. Let's understand this. You're either getting the car back, or your mother can sell it now, which I think is probably a good idea. And if your agreement was that she should give you $4,000 for the car, that's what you just told me.
Correct.
Just a minute. That's what you just told me. That's what you told me.
The initial agreement. And then
all right. So the initial agreement would probably still be valid today, because...
we had never brought anything up after that. That was just something we just stated.
Do you want the car back, or do you want her to sell the car?
I'd rather have the car back.
You'd rather have
I
the
need
car?
the car.
Correct.
Just... What?
I need the car.
Then pay the...
I'm paying for it.
No. You have to give him back the money. He took money out of his account.
We didn't have an arrangement. He gave me the car.
No, listen to me. I don't believe you.
My daughter...
No. I don't believe you that he gave you the car
I was to pay the loan
with the money that he put in from his trust.
He never asked me for $4,000.
Good.
Just
Then
the
I will-
$3,000 to pay
then
the
I
loan
will
off.
draft an order indicating that within 30 days this car is to be sold and the first $4,000 is to be turned over to him. Now, with regard to the rifles, tell me about the rifles.
Okay, the rifle she had given to me about 12 years ago.
When
And-
you were 6 years old?
Yes, it was approximately then. And then I had them in my possession since about the age of 9. And she has told almost every member of the family that those were mine.
Where did they come from?
They were, I believe, our grandfather's.
Which I inherited when my parents passed away.
Tell me about the rifles. Where were they kept?
They were in my room until I had the baby, and then I told him, let's put him in your room, because he's the only one out of all my children that I trusted to be, responsible, because he's a very good boy. I never ever had troubles with him. I've never had to really discipline him. And he knew that those rifles would only go to him after I passed away. I have it in my will, which he took and opened, and he
That is
wasn't.
it.
Let me see.
She showed me the will the day she wrote it up.
It was sealed from my lawyer.
You gave me a copy, and
Just
we
a
put it
second.
in
I
the
don't care whether
Bible.
you stole it, and I just want to see whether or not what the date of this will is. This is a will dated 1999. Okay, so well before you moved out of the house.
Correct.
To my son Valentine, that's you. I leave 2 rifles to be given to him upon reaching the age of majority.
But I've had it in my possession ever since I was 9.
I don't care.
Only because of the baby.
I don't care. I mean, in your possession, but you lived in the same house as your mother,
Correct.
right? So until you reach majority, you have no space. She owns the air you breathe. She owns the house, she owns your room, she owns everything that's in it, unless I find that she made a clear gift to you. And this is evidence that she did not make a clear gift to you prior to 1999, as you said, when you were 6 years old, because she has disposed of this property by way of a will. When anything happens to your mother, you get the guns. I'm not losing any sleep over rifles. You have to understand that.
Fine.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Valentin Carrillo says his mother, Brenda Sanchez, owes for the down payment on a car. Valentin also claims his mom won't surrender his collection of rifles.
I've just taken care of the car and the rifles. Between the two of you, now let's take care of the computer. According to the answer and the counterclaim, there were 2 computers. One of them was a new one that you either assisted with or helped him
I helped
purchase
him
for,
get.
for himself. And the understanding was that he didn't need both computers and one was going to be left in the house. Now, you took 2 computers when you left.
Correct. The computer that she's talking about, I had actually given to my younger sister, Maria. And I had told her a week before that I was going to leave, that I was going to take the computer because I knew my mom was going to try to sell it, because that was what she wanted to do, was sell it to
I would
a
never
friend of
sell
hers.
it, you know that.
Just a second.
She was going to sell it to a friend of hers that was
Money
one
that
of the
would have gone
parents
to
that...
you.
I don't want to hear you fighting with him now. Where is your
There's-
sister living?
She's in Mexico because she abandoned him.
I did not.
How old is your sister?
My sister is 17.
Who is she living with in Mexico?
My uncle.
My daughter, the day he moved out, he told her there is no way that I would leave this computer for any of you guys.
Oh, no.
And she was there. He just dumped everything on the floor, and he just tore the house up.
I just want to know who you are.
I'm his older sister, her daughter.
Okay. And your 17-year-old sister was living in Mexico
Yes.
with an uncle,
Correct.
whose address you have.
Yes.
The second computer is going to be sent within the next 5 days to your older daughter in Mexico, who is 17.
She's not going to
living
be in Mexico. She's coming home Saturday.
If she's coming
She
home.
wants to return home.
If she's coming home Saturday, you check, and if she's coming home Saturday, wherever she is, she gets the computer. Do you understand?
Yes.
Perfect. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When he turned 18, he just all of a sudden just changed.
She should have never took her son's car. She should not take nothing from her children, but everything that she can, she takes from her children.
I hope we can get back together. I love my son very much.
She has to go through therapy or something.
And now the next case.
All parties are in the matter of Frasica versus Rivera. Step forward, please.
24-year-old nursing assistant Amanda Frasica is suing the father of her daughter, 25-year-old truck driver Jose Rivera, for the cost of an engagement ring and for unpaid bills when they lived together.
Ms. Frasica, your lawsuit has 2 parts to it. Let's take care of the easy part first. You and the defendant live together, and you have a child.
Yes, we do.
Together. And there came a time when you became engaged.
Yes.
The first part of your lawsuit says that the defendant returned your engagement ring and got the money.
He returned it without my knowledge, and once I found out, there was a big to-do about it.
That's not true. Your
Just a second. Well, clearly you're no longer engaged. You're no longer together.
No.
You don't get that. So that takes care of the first part of your lawsuit. Second part of your lawsuit says that when he left in April, he left some outstanding bills.
Yes.
What outstanding bills do you claim he owes you?
I have a phone bill, I have cable bill, I have a credit card bill, and another calling card that I paid by the month.
What was your financial arrangement with him while you were living together?
Originally, when we were living with my parents, all the money was supposed to go into the bank. Once we moved into our apartment, the bills were supposed to be 50-50, but it never worked out that way.
Can I see the bills that you say are outstanding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Rivera, while you were together with the plaintiff, is this a credit card that you would use together?
Yes, ma'am.
You have any problem with paying for half of this bill?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, that takes care of that bill. Then we have a phone bill, and you're asking him to pay for half of that.
Now I'm asking him to pay for the whole bill because, as you can see, the calls made on it were all made to his family's household. He was out of work, on the phone, calling his family. I'm at work trying to pay the bills, and no sooner was I making the money, it was being back out the window, being spent again.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, she's saying that I didn't have a job. The first job that I had on hand, she got me fired from. Second job that I had, I only had 15 hours to work. And, I just had a lot of problems going to work because of Amanda just making things difficult for me to go to work.
Like what? Like how?
Just complaining about bills not being paid and just...
So your response to that was not to work?
No, I did work. The first
No, but
job...
your response to that was not to work full-time because she was complaining about the bills?
No, I was working full-time. I had a full-time job, which I was working as a waiter. Amanda got me fired from the job by going to the job and throwing my clothes in front of everybody. I got fired from that job.
When was that?
I don't even remember the date, when exactly it was.
What other bills do you claim he owes you?
There's the cable bill there also, which you can see. I just want the movies paid for, not the fees for the cable box or anything.
Well, what had been your history with the defendant? If he ordered movies and you got the whole bill in, did you just pay the whole bill out of a joint account?
It was said if we went over and beyond the regular cable itself, like if he wanted to get a premium channel, he would pay for it. I wasn't going to pay for it because I felt no need for it. I wasn't at home. And if we were going to order any movies beyond that, we were responsible for paying for that.
I want to tell you something. This sounds like a very convoluted financial arrangement between two people who are living together, have a child together.
Well, we had a budget written out about what our regular expenses were. If he chose to go over that, he was responsible for it. If I chose to go over it, I was responsible for it. I mean, he was pretty well provided for, and with the whole fact of him talking about me making it difficult for him to go to work. My father bought us a car. I insured it. I got it inspected. I got it put on the road. He drove it. I mean, so I didn't make it hard for him. You know, he used to drop me off at work and use the car.
When I say
and
she
after
made it
work,
hard for me to go to work, Your Honor, I mean, she used to call my job and harass me at my job.
Excuse me.
How did she call your job and harass you at your job,
I
Mr.
called
Rick?
his job to ask if he was there.
She, for some reason, thought that any girl who was working with me, I was cheating on her with her. And I mean, and she used to call my job plenty of times to see if I was at work, or if I wasn't at work, if I was missing work, or if I was just not doing anything but at work. And
Well, were you at work?
Yes, ma'am, I was at work.
So listen to me. So if she called you and said, "Can I speak to Mr. Rivera, please?" you would get on the phone. She would say, "Hi, how's everything?" and goodbye. And that's it, because she knew you were there.
Right.
Right? But were there times, Mr. Rivera, when she called your work and you weren't there?
Whenever I left.
Were there times, Mr. Rivera, when she called your job and you weren't there?
No, ma'am, there was not.
So you were always there?
Yes, ma'am.
And what kind of work were you doing at that time?
At that time, I was waitering.
So she would call you, somebody would call you to the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? She would say hello?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would say hello?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would she say to you?
She was just making sure that I was at work.
Well, that's not what she said. She said, "I'm not making sure that you're at work," because that's not what women do when they call to see if their husbands or their fiancés are where they're supposed to be. Shh. They usually just say, "Hi, thinking about you, bye." He's where he's supposed to be. That's what usually happens. That's not harassment. Harassment is if she comes down to your place of business and she throws a scene because you're not there, she waits for you.
She did do that.
You want to tell me about when she threw a scene, sir?
I got off of work one morning. I went home and I found my bags all packed up, and I left the house. That same night.
Well, was that a surprise to you, Mr. Rivera?
Was that a what?
Was that a surprise
A surprise to me? Yes. It came to a shock to me when I came home and all my bags were packed.
You mean you left to go to work the day before or the evening before, and everything was hunky-dory between
Everything
the two?
was fine.
Everything was fine.
I come home the next day, everything is packed up, so I'm thinking she wants me to go. I left that same night.
You mean you didn't ask her why?
No, I didn't ask her why because there was no one home. Like I said, I came home, all my bags are packed. I took it to myself, saying that she wants me to leave, so I left.
Okay.
That same night, she comes into my work with the rest of my clothes in the restaurant in front of my customers, co-workers, and management, and just drops everything in front of everybody. Just.
All right, just because I'm curious, tell me about this little thing from.
Ooh, tell you the real half here. I would call his work, and they'd be like, "He's not here. I just dropped him off there." Well, he's not here. Well, where is he? He left with so and so, which happened to be a female. And I started hearing stories, and I started thinking. I'd call his work, and I'd speak with a manager, which I was somewhat friendly with, and he'd be like, "He left 2 hours ago."
Okay, so when'd you pack his bag?
It got to the point that I said he started smoking. There was an incident when he smoked marijuana at my parents' house. My parents are totally against it. My parents opened up the household to both of us. So I hit the roof. And then between that and him not being at work, me thinking he's cheating on me for obvious reasons, I turned around, and that was my only way to let him know I was serious.
Go ahead.
Well, I had no way to reach him for about a week or two, and I said, "You still have belongings here. You need to get them out." And the only contact place I had was his work. So it was the end of shift. It was about 15 minutes before he got out of work. And I turned around, I said, "You don't want to call me back, and I have no way of contacting you." I had all his items packed up. I didn't just throw them. I went into the lobby, and I said, "Here's your stuff." And he came at me with a fit, came at me out the door. I thought he was going to hit me. My mom was there in the car because she had driven me. She didn't know what was going to happen. I got in the car, and I left.
All right. Since you left in April, have you been paying any child support for your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
You pay that through the court?
अकाउंट लॉग इन करते ही आपके सामने ऐसा इंटरफेस आएगा। मैं आपको अपना अकाउंट दिखाता हूँ। माई में गए, ये देखें मेरे अकाउंट में अब $282 पड़े हैं, और ये देखें मेरा विड्रॉ $606 का हो चुका है। ठीक है, तो आज का वर्क करते हैं। वर्क के लिए रिज़र्व पे गए, इसे क्रॉस किया और कंफर्म पे क्लिक कर दिया। ये 15 से 20 सेकंड ऐसे रन करता है। उसके बाद यहाँ पे एक तस्वीर शो होगी, फिर हमने उसे कंफर्म कर देना है। हम वेट करते हैं, तो ये आ गया। अब हम इसे कंफर्म करते हैं। कंफर्म कर दिया, अब कलेक्टेड में जाना है। कलेक्टेड यहाँ पे ये शो होगी, इसे हमने कर देना है सेल। सेल पे क्लिक किया, आगे कंप्लीटेड, और ये देखें आज का हमारा वर्क जो है ना हो चुका है। अभी हमारी स्क्रीन पे शो होगा कि हमें आज के कितने डॉलर इनकम हुई है। तो ये देखें हमें $5 आज के मिल चुके हैं। अभी मैं आपको अपने अकाउंट में भी दिखाता हूँ कि ऐड हुए हैं। ये देखें 287 हो चुके हैं। ये सिंपल सा वर्क है। शुक्रिया।